Once again, good evening, everyone, and let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone, thank you very much. And again, if you are here and desire to speak at unscheduled audience participation, there are some 4x6 cards in the back that you would fill out, telling us who you are, what the subject is that you might be wanting to talk about, and then on the back are some instructions that you might want to read about how that process works, as well as I'll be reiterating some of those things just before that time period. I just want you to know that this is an organizational meeting as well. So the first 2.5 pages of the agenda are getting some necessary things done from an organizational perspective, so be patient with us. But the first thing that we want to do is take attendance. Heather, would you take attendance, please?
Yep. President Donnelly.
Here.
Vice President Griffith. Here. Secretary Schaefer here. Treasurer Bailey.
Here.
Trustee D'Alessandro.
Here.
Trustee Foster.
Here.
Trustee Hanser. Present.
Very good. We're all here. We now move on to the election of officers, and I would like chairperson of the Oxford Board of Education. Is there support for that motion, Corey? Chad, support? Discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Tom.
Yes.
Chad.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Mary. Yes.
All right, Corey, you are officially the chairman of the board.
Thank you very much. What I want to do first is just to give the audience a little idea of what we're doing as well as on the board. Our bylaw number 0152 officer. At the first meeting in January, the board shall elect the president and vice president as well as secretary and treasurer. Consideration will be given to any nominee who has already taken MASB 100 level training, which is a certified board member. Election of officers shall be by a majority of the full board. Where no such majority exists on the first roll call vote, a second vote shall be cast for the two candidates who receive the greatest number of roll call votes. Except for those appointed to fill a vacancy, officers shall serve 1 year and until their respective successors are elected and shall qualify. An officer may be removed for cause by a majority vote of the full board. The board shall fill a vacancy in any board officer position within 30 days of the occurrence of the vacancy. One of the things that we asked each of the board members to do, if they were interested, is we filled out nomination, self-nomination. So I have some of those. The first one that we're going to do is president. And what I have, I want to run through these. Mr. Donnelly is nominating for president. Tom has been serving as board president. Chad Griffith, who has recently been the vice president, is nominating for vice president, secretary, treasurer, as well as policy committee. I have been the treasurer and am putting my name in for treasurer again, as well as policy. Dan D'Alessandro is interested in nominating for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. One thing I forgot to note, Chad is a certified board member with merit, as am I. Mary Hanser is nominating for secretary, treasurer, policy, as well as Open Schools Budget Committee and Oakland County School Board Legislative. I know that Mary is certified board with merit, but I think you have much more than that.
I'm at the level 3 award of distinction, and I also have an advocacy specialty skills award.
Okay. Congratulations. And when we get to the others, if somebody wants to nominate, that's acceptable as well. So let's start off with the nominations for president. We have Mr. Donnelly and Mr. D'Alessandro at this time. Mr. Donnelly, are you still willing to serve in that role if elected?
I am.
Mr. D'Alessandro, are you willing to serve in that role if elected?
No, I think it's very important, given the circumstances, that this board has one voice, one president, one person to select from, so that we can have consistency moving forward with all the messages that Tom has already received. So I withdraw my position for president.
And since I've already withdrawn my name as well, and we only have one nomination, there's no reason for a roll call vote. It's a unanimous decision at that point. So, Mr. Donnelly, you...
I think there still has to be an official vote.
Officially?
We have to
We do have to officially roll
I
call.
don't think you have to
don't we?
officially vote since there will be no votes.
Actually, we don't have a secretary yet. I'm your acting secretary.
Yes, you are the
Yes.
secretary.
So if you want to go through a roll call vote, just for formality?
Parliamentarian,
Yes.
oh, we need a motion.
Need a motion?
Yes, so I will entertain a motion.
Move to support that Tom Donnelly be nominated for the position of president for the 2022 calendar year.
Support. So we have a motion to support Tom Donnelly be nominated for the role of president and supported by Mr. D'Alessandro. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly,
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes. So moved. Mr. Donnelly, you are...
Fellow board members,
Thank you. Honored to have your support in all of that. And so now we move down to vice president. And my memory of those forms is that we have Corey. Corey, you've removed yours. So Corey, you've removed yours. And so for vice president, we have Chad, who's our current vice president, and Dan D'Alessandro. First, I'll ask those two individuals. Chad, do you desire to stay or be in this position again if elected?
Yes, sir.
Dan, you would be interested in this position as well?
Yes.
Is there anyone else that, I don't want to miss anyone, but I don't think, no, there was just those two.
Correct.
All right, so understanding that, we put this into a vote. There's two individuals that everyone who votes, including yourselves, right, is that you're going to get four. Someone is going to get four as the vote rolls out. And so we don't have a secretary yet. So what we do is, Angela, you go through a roll call vote. How do we do the motion if we have two?
I think we're
We'll do another official motion for the one person after they get at least 4 votes?
Yes.
Got it. So what you're going to do is get us to 4 votes, and then we'll put it, like you did with me, put an official motion out.
Yes.
Very good. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So would you like to do that, that roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Schaefer, I need you to tell me who you vote for.
Sorry. Dan D'Alessandro.
Mrs. Hanson,
Chad Griffith.
Mr. Griffith,
Chad Griffith.
Mr. Foster,
Chad Griffith.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
Dan D'Alessandro.
Mr. Bailey,
Chad Griffith.
Mr. Donnelly.
So we have 4,
Yeah.
correct? Am I right? I want to verify.
We have 4.
Dan had 2 votes, Chad had 4.
Yes.
All right. So now we have to officially make that a motion with public discussion.
Yes.
All right. So I need someone to put the motion on the floor for Chad, since he got 4 votes, and then get it supported. and then have a discussion and we'll move forward. So, that's right?
Yes.
Okay. Eric, did I see your hand up?
Move to support that Jack Griffin be nominated for the position of Vice President of the 2022 calendar year.
All right, and is there support for that? Mary, support? Now discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanser?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes. All right, we move on to secretary. Of the forms that we had, I believe, Mary, you had mentioned that you would be interested in the position of secretary. Heather, you have had that position. I didn't get a form, but I want to know what your interest is in that position. Would you like to be included in the?
I'd be happy to serve if needed, but if somebody else would like to run, I'd be happy to support somebody else as well.
All right, if Mary's interested, which role do you want to do? Do you want to go through a vote?
No, I support Mary.
All right, so then, given that then, we can go directly to a motion. Chad?
Move to support that Mary Hanser be nominated for the position of Secretary for the 2022 calendar year.
All right, motion is made, support. Heather, support. Discussion? None? All right, roll call vote, and after this, then you'll be doing roll call votes, Mary. All right, so Angela?
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanser?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes. All right, we move on to treasurer. I believe with people who are in current positions, that leaves us with Corey and Dan. Am I correct in that, Corey? Would you currently have that position? Are you interested in serving that position?
Yes.
All right, it's a yes. Dan, you state you have an X by that as well. Are you interested in serving in that position still?
Yes.
So we have two individuals. So then again, we follow the same process as we did before. But Mary, because you, just so the parliamentarian, as positions are beginning to get filled, we have officers. As you do a roll call vote, you go with their last.
Your last is president.
I'm a tiebreaker.
Chad would be second to last.
And Mary's third to last, and so as she calls this roll vote, she has to kind of work her way backwards.
Correct.
Okay.
So I am doing a poll to.
Each person needs to give a name.
Okay, so other than the order of the last few, the order of the others doesn't matter?
The order of the others doesn't matter, so they have to say either Dan or Corey.
Okay. Mr. Foster? Mr. Bailey?
Corey.
Ms. Schaefer?
Dan.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Dan.
Ms. Hanser? Dan. Mr. Griffith?
Corey.
So we have a tie?
We do.
We do have a tie. I'm the breaking vote.
You are.
I will vote for Corey.
So I will then, oh, no, then it's Dan. Okay, so I recorded that. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Want me to read it?
And Mr. Donnelly, you would then call for the vote.
Yep, I'm doing that now. I just kept getting the names written on my piece of paper. Heather, would you like to make that motion?
Move to support that Corey Bailey be nominated for the position of treasurer for the 2022 calendar year.
Support. Eric, support. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh no, roll call. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself already.
Sorry, I was just gonna.
Roll call. A Mary, roll call vote.
Ms. Hanser, yes. Mr. Foster? Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move on to parliamentarian. Corey, you are currently our parliamentarian. Is that correct? Or is... Yeah.
I think Dan is.
Dan, you are?
Yeah, Dan is.
That's right. Okay, very good. So Dan is currently our parliamentarian. Thank you. And yes. Are we good with that? Is there anyone else?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So given the fact that,
Mr. Donnelly?
Dan, are you still interested in that? Okay, all right. Dan not being interested in the position of parliamentarian, is there anyone interested in taking on that role? Corey, you're interested? So would someone like to make a motion stating that? Chad?
Move to support that Corey Bailey be nominated for the position of board parliamentarian for the 2022 calendar year.
Very good. Support? Dan, support? Discussion? Mary, roll call vote?
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Ms. Hanser, yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, very good. And then we have some other things to look at. We move on to the signers, bank depository signatures for bank accounts.
So, yeah. those
There's no
ones.
need for a change. We still state the motion just to state so, so it's in the books. So I need someone to put this motion on the floor. Dan?
Move to approve that all general fund and debt retirement checks for the 2022 calendar year be listed and approved by the board. They will be signed by using the signature plate engraved with the names of Tim Throne and Corey Bailey.
Thank you. Is there support? Chad, support? Discussion? Mary, roll call vote?
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Ms. Hanser, yes. Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes. We have another motion that is also connected to the superintendent and the treasurer. Would someone like to put this motion on? Heather, check.
Move to support the payroll, internal accounting, and school lunch checks be signed by the 2022 calendar year by using the plate engraved with the names Tim Throne and Corey Bailey.
All right, is there support? Eric, support? Discussion? Dan?
Does this need to be amended with the fact that it says the 2022 calendar year with Tim, that Tim will be retiring shortly, or can we just have another amendment when that time comes?
I'm thinking an amendment takes place when that comes, because we'll have several things that we'll have to amend.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call
Okay. I'm sorry, so that was Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor, yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
vote. Yes. All right, motion carries. We move on to board. Oh, did we miss one? We missed one. I think we missed Dan.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we missed Dan.
I'm sorry, I'm new at this, Mr. D'Alessandro. My apologies. Mr. D'Alessandro, how do you vote?
Let me think about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, now there are some committee things, both for our internal policy committee as well as Oakland Schools, OCSBA, Government Relations Committees, for our sake and for the sake of those in the public. Who currently is in those roles? I think we have 3 individuals that are currently on the policy committee. So we have Mary, we have Corey. Is there a third? Dan? All right, so we have Mary, Corey, and Dan. Let me just simply ask the question. Mary, Corey, and Dan, are the 3 of you interested in this position? Mary first.
Yes.
All right, Corey second.
Yes.
Dan third.
Yes.
All right, so we have those 3. Is there anybody else that wants to put their name in, or can we put these 3 in the slate? What's that? There was another one on my sheet. Mary. Dan. Oh, Chad. You were on Pal.
If everybody that's sitting there wants to be on that committee, that's fine.
All right. All right, so Chad has removed his name off because the 3 would like to stay on. So can we, someone make a motion that those 3 names be put in? Eric?
Move to appoint Mary Hanser, Corey Bailey, and Dan D'Alessandro to the Board of Education Policy.
Is there support? Mary, support? Discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer? Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Hanser, yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes. I saw you got Dan first that time. Good job. Got it. Got it. All right, next is serving on the Oakland Schools Budget Committee. Who currently holds that position? Corey? Is that true?
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone else interested in holding that position?
I think Ms. Hanser had an interest on her sheet.
You did.
I had shown some interest if Mr. Bailey is willing to stay on.
I'd be glad to give it to you.
I feel a handoff just happened.
I am willing to take that role. I already interact with a lot of folks at Oakland Schools, and I'm happy to take on that role.
All right, would someone like to put this motion on the floor using Mary Hanser? Chad?
Move to appoint Mary Hanser to the Oakland Schools Budget Committee.
All right, support?
Support.
Dan, support? Discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor, yes. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes. Motion carries, and thank you for everyone's patience, but that gets the organizational things out of the way. Did we miss one?
One more.
Oakland County Government Relations Committee.
Oh, okay, got it. Got it. Got it. I just wrote the wrong names in the wrong place. There we go. Now it makes sense. All right, OCSBA Governmental Relations Committee. Who's currently on it? Mary is currently on it. Mary, as the question we've asked this evening, are you wanting to remain on that? If
Yes, I am.
okay. Anyone else that was on Oakland County? I don't see any. Given that, would someone like to put a motion on the floor that Mary, Heather?
Move to approve Mary Hanser to the Oakland County School Board Association Government Relations Committee.
Thank you so much. Support? Chad, support? Discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Hanser, yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes.
Thank you. I will add that we meet once a month, and anybody is willing to come and join it. It's a very, very informative committee. It keeps us on top of what's going on in state and federal government related to schools.
When is that, Mary? Is that like a certain schedule?
It is. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what day of the week, because I could let it.
Let me know, I'd like to maybe go with you.
I will. Yeah, it's a great meeting.
And Mayor, if you think about it, maybe
Usually on
just
Wednesdays.
send an email to the,
I'm sorry?
maybe if you think about it, send an email to the board with the date
I
and
certainly
time.
can. Yep, and I think that Angela forwards those too. We get some meeting announcements, but I'll be sure that it's forwarded to the next one. It's usually on a Wednesday. Yeah.
All right. Now, thank you for your patience with all of that and with my little blunder there at the end. We're going to move on to our regular order of business, which begins with any changes to the board agenda.
None.
Thank you, sir. We're now at the consent agenda. Minutes for the December 14th meeting, December bills payable, new hires that we have in our packet. And would someone like to put the consent agenda motion on the floor? Dan?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dan. Is there support? Chad, support? Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Education matters, letter A is just to let you know that in your packet, there is a leadership code that we look at every year. And so in our next meeting, we will vote on it. But I just want to make sure that you know that it's in your packet to review it, to be ready to discuss it and vote on that at our next meeting. The next thing is about our meetings. Do you all have a sheet of paper near you that has kind of got black print and red print and all of that on it? As I discussed with you over the last week or two, 2 years ago, when we were developing COVID learning plans and things, we as a board felt like we were a bit behind. And so Tim and I think, put 6 or 8 weeks together in a row where we met to get updated and to get our questions asked and to get caught up with them moving 1,000,000 miles a minute to get things going. And I felt that we were in a similar situation with the incident of 6 weeks ago. And so I'm proposing that we have meetings already scheduled because of the superintendent search that are filled in. If we just filled in a couple more, then we could meet 6 or 8 weeks in a row and get safety updates and get updated on where we're going. And so the one change that we need to make, if you would please, down around March 8th, and that's actually one of our scheduled meetings, right? Tim will not be here on the 8th, and so he is suggesting that we might combine the 8th and the 14th meeting into one meeting and either do it on the 14th or the 15th. So Tim is suggesting that the 8th has to move anyways, so let's move it to the 14th and do both meetings at one time. And so That was the only change from a date perspective. Angela, do we need to turn this into a motion if we decide to add these meetings? Probably wouldn't be hurt. Agreed? All right. So how about if we put it on as a motion so that we can discuss it? Does that make sense? So someone put a motion out that you agree to the schedule, but change the March 8th date to the 14th, and then let's see where that takes us. Chad?
See if I can put that together. Move to adopt the proposed Board of Education revised meeting schedule.
With one change.
With one change to eliminate the March 8th meeting and to move that quarterly review to the March 14th.
There'll be 2 changes.
Say it again.
I'm just saying there would be 2 changes.
Technically, it's 2 because you're taking one and moving it into another, right? But we all agree with that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a second? Dan, second? Now, discussion. Yes?
I guess the only thing that I'd say is I appreciate pulling these extra. I mean, it's going to be a busy couple of months, but we anticipated that anyway. But I think it is going to be good for us to be sitting in front of each other more frequently right now.
Okay, very good. Very good. Any other comments or questions? All right, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. We will adhere to the new schedule, and Angela will get that sent out in all the ways that you do. All right, thank you very much. Conflict of interest form, just to make sure that if you haven't gotten that in, please get it in. Angela says that she has 1 or 2 hanging out there that she doesn't have in her records, so check your records. See if you have it, see if you submitted it, but we need those forms put in. And the last thing under number 7 is the security servers that, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Oak County Sheriffs and the prosecutors took servers that we needed to replace so that we could actively run our system.
Correct.
All right, so very good. So what you're approving is the backup servers that we needed to purchase because those legal entities have the original ones. All right, so let's put the motion on the floor. If there's any discussion necessary, we can do that. Someone like to put this motion up? Dan?
Move to approve the security service system for the district from Intercom TSG with a total amount of $119,780 as presented.
Thank you. Is there support? Chad, support? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I don't see anything under curriculum instruction, nor finance operations, human resources, student services. Jill, you have a presentation for school of choice and also safety update?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to bring your attention to the school of choice memo that should be in your packet. We're not voting on that tonight. We'll do that at either the next meeting or the February meeting. Our first day of school is August 24th, and you see those dates. I just wondered if there were any questions. Wanted to make you aware that I'll be asking for a vote on that at a future meeting.
Anyone have anything for her at this time? Nothing. Please, safety update.
Absolutely. So I do want to share with you exciting news about today that we were back in this building with our high school students, with our high school staff, and it was absolutely electric in these hallways. It was amazing. A lot of thank yous need to go out to a lot of people, but most importantly, I want to say thank you to the high school staff, high school administration, and the middle school teachers and administration for just an extremely warm welcome. The number of logistics that went into preparing this building to house the high schoolers is, I mean, it's unbelievable. And it was, from an outsider perspective, flawless. It was fantastic. We had 88% attendance today. I really think that's something to be celebrated. I do want to mention an email went out today from Mr. Wolf to the high school families, letting them know about the 3 options for attendance. And so, as we saw, most of our students came in today, but we are allowing for a virtual option at the high school when they return to the high school, or to transfer officially to Ocsba. And so, we received emails and information on a Google form from about 200 or so, 225 or so families who wanted more information. I just want to let them know those calls have started to get more information out to them to see what choice might be best for each of those individual students. But as I wanted to share, most of our students are staying with us and are attending. So I think that's just really exciting news. I also want to say thank you to Dr. Henry, for those of you who've had a chance to listen to him or watch him. He's been working with staff, he's been working with families, and he's really just phenomenal. And he delivered a message to our folks today in school, our students and staff. And I think it was received really well. So I wanted to bring that up. We've received feedback from our families at that Oxford Strong email. We have had those 2 teletown halls. We've been gathering all that information, and I know that we've been able to answer many of the questions. I think Mr. Throne might update you on those, but we weren't able to answer all of them due to time constraints. So for those people who put out information to us or questions to us, I hope they know that those will be answered. We're looking into the best way to do that. I don't think individual emails is the best way. And for those whose emails have gone unanswered, I hope they know it's just due to us being absolutely inundated with messages. And so we're trying to figure out the best way to disseminate that information. There's a lot of themes, a lot of buckets, and we're going to try and come up with some FAQ type documents. As we continue to plan for the slow and safe reopening, I want to remind you that our current school safety policies have strong and very effective tools to promote safety so that we can swiftly respond to threats or inappropriate, concerning behavior in accordance with state laws. We have quite a bit of latitude that leads to us typically engaging mental health professionals, parents, and law enforcement, depending on what is deemed appropriate or necessary given the situation. I want to assure you that we have been extremely vigilant in working together and with our teams in the buildings and across the district as we support our students' return to school. I've said it time and again, that the physical and emotional safety of our students and our staff are our absolute main priority in this district, and I think hopefully our work to that end shows our folks that. We have listened carefully. We have staff members, grief counselors, mental health experts, security consultants, faith leaders out in the community, and law enforcement that all came together to develop our return to learning plan. So as I mentioned, some of those logistics, I mean, we've had people from far and wide helping us to create solid plans, and I think that the time that went into that was seen today in the results. But it's going to be an ongoing process for us. Our local law enforcement has partnered with us and is providing a visible and continuing presence. You can see them here tonight. We've also hired a private security firm, providing additional security at all the school buildings and central office. And because we're committed to providing emotional support and counseling, we are going to continue to have professionally trained crisis counselors and trauma experts on site that will be available for grief and trauma counseling as needed. And we had many of those individuals today, so thank you to everyone from Oakland County Health Network and other agencies who were able to lend us that help. We are going to continue to respond to any reports of threats, weapons, or inappropriate images in accordance with school law and with our school policies and our state law. We're going to involve mental health experts and law enforcement when it's appropriate, and the consequences could include removal from school. So I guess I would just ask for board support as we are hyper-vigilant right now. We're asking parents to speak to our students. We're asking parents to partner with us, explain to your students that inappropriate content is being looked at through a different lens right now, as we are all, like I said, having an overabundance of caution moving forward. We encourage anyone who sees a threat, either in word, deed, or on social media, to tell a trusted adult at school, or to report it through OK to Say. Not only is there the helpline that I've put out there on the website, and we've talked about the email address, but there's also an app. And so I'm getting feedback from parents that the app is better for this age group of middle school, high school students. So please, parents, if you're watching or listening, encourage your students to download that app. It's available for Apple or Android, both Apple and Android devices. And I think that may be all I have for you tonight with regard to our current safety update. I do want to touch on COVID. I know I haven't personally spoken to you about that in a little while, but the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services put out a memo yesterday, and Oakland Schools put out one today, the Oakland County Health Department along with Oakland Schools, that they're going to adopt those changes. We're putting something together for our families as we become more familiar with those, but in short, we'll be switching to 5 days of isolation for any positive case instead of 10. That includes staff or students who are positive for COVID-19. There will be no contact tracing for any school-related exposures, and thus no mandatory quarantining. Just encouraging students to continue to mask up and requiring that within the school, and that allows us not to do the contact tracing or the quarantining. So please stay tuned. There'll be more information about that coming from our office later this week.
Jill, thank you. The app, is the app the OK to Say app? Could you talk about that for a second?
OK, numeral 2, SAY, no spaces. If you search in the App Store, it'll come up.
So it's not just a website or a phone call, there's actually an app?
There is.
All right, very good. Anybody have anything, comments for Jill before she yes, Mary?
I'm sorry.
We'll get Chad.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Thank you, Ms. Lamont, for all this work. When you talked about the return to learn plan, you named a number of different teams that we teamed up with, and I wanted to hear that again because it seemed to be all over the spectrum. I just want to make sure my notes are clear.
I think I have everybody in this list.
And I know if it's not, I understand that you don't need to leave anybody out.
Yep, I'm trying to be as all-inclusive as I can be because we've had such a village of people come out to help us. And what's probably not included in this list are those individuals from other districts who had unfortunate, similar traumatic events. And we have spoken with them as well in several different districts. But I have district families, staff members, trained grief counselors, mental health experts, security consultants, faith leaders, and of course, law enforcement. And I believe that's and the dogs. And the therapy dogs.
And the therapy dogs. The favorite. They're the favorite.
I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet Ox. That's what they refer to Oxford, the dog who's here with our new school resource officer. Deputy Rafalski's here with the dog, and I think the dog may be more popular than the deputy, but we love them both.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Mary, do you have anything else?
Can I add something on to her comment?
Yeah, please.
Just because you brought it up, just so everybody hears about all the resources that we're going to have available. It's not just on the coming back, it will be for the remainder of the year at our high school, especially once we get back. So these people will be in place to be there to support our staff, our students, each other, just, so this isn't just to let's see if it works. This is going to be in place to support all moral support that's needed through the whole year. Not everybody's going to react the initial day or have a problem the initial day or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you. Chad, you had something?
Yeah, not a question, I guess just a comment, Jill. 88% attendance today. I think that's tremendous. I guess thank you for the planning and the effort that you and the team put into providing a space for the kids to all get back together. And you said it looks like at least most of the students right now are choosing to stay. And then I know that's not an easy decision for a lot of people. And because from our perspective, for what it's worth, we're thinking about those kids and families and really praying for their healing. So thank you.
And those families who've reached out who have specific needs, like I'm trying to think of a good example, but my child would stay as long as blank, right? My child will stay as long as you can promise They'll have access to a counselor twice a day. My child will stay, I mean, we're trying to work with every family that we can within reason and beyond what we would ever normally have done to just get them back and get them into their routines and heal together.
And staff too.
Absolutely, staff as well, yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Jill, thank you very much. All right, we move on to unscheduled audience participation. If you were late getting here, we're going to take a bit of a break. On the back table are 4x6 cards roughly that have instructions on the back that tell you how this works. And then fill it out, tell us who you are, what it is, the subject that you're wanting to talk to, get that over to Angela. In about 4 or 5 minutes, we will start back up again, and then we will go into unscheduled audience participation. So thank you for your patience, and we will take a break for about 5 minutes. For days, I've thought about this statement. There are some of us, some of you in the community, that have concerns about masking and the masking of our children. And for months, you've come to the board sharing your concerns. And for months, we have taken those concerns to the Oak County Health Department. We've gone into researching whether there was a conflict between the Oakland County mandate and SB 82. It's not that we didn't do anything. We sought truth and information in all of those things. We now have a lawsuit about masking that we will have to be dealing with. And although you have a right to speak at a public event, there are some serious things that we got to deal with right now that, yes, could be equaled as serious as some of what you're feeling. But there's nothing we can do about that. We've got a lawsuit to deal with that's going to go through a court system that may go to the Oakland County the Health Department, and maybe that'll trigger some things. But my point is, it is my opinion, I guess, that you're barking at the wrong tree at this point, because we've exhausted what we can do as a board to challenge the current powers as to what's going on and why us and not them and all that. We've done it. We've done it and we've done it. The other thing that I want to share with you, because of some of the recent events in our last board meetings, is our policy on public participation. The presiding officer, me, can prohibit public comments which are frivolous, repetitive, and harassing. I can interrupt, warn, terminate a participant's statements when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant. I can request an individual to leave the meeting when that person behaves in a manner that is disruptive to the orderly conduct of the meeting. I can request the assistance of law enforcement in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of a meeting. I can call for a recess, adjourn the meeting entirely based on the conduct of people in a meeting. We have important things to deal with, and I'm asking for civility. This is a chance for you to be heard, and we as a board want to hear. You'll watch my fellow board members and I taking notes about everything that you're saying. We subsequently will go back to cabinet seeking answers to those questions. Either they will respond or will respond, or they'll come up in a report in the next board meeting. But I just want you to know that what has occurred in the last couple meetings will not occur today. Will not. There is too much important stuff that we're doing. And we're going to treat all of it with respect. And if that can't be done, we'll have officers from up there take you out. With that, we don't have our timer working today, which was a flashing light that would tell you that you're at 4 minutes. So what I want you to know is that Heather is going to be our timekeeper today. You want to Mary do it? Okay. Mary, raise your hand. Mary's your timekeeper. So what that means is she's going to have her cell phone on a timer, and when you come up to the microphone, she's going to hit a timer. I'm going to try to pay attention to Mary, but at 4 minutes, she's going to raise her hand until she feels like you saw her. And then at 5, she's going to hit the button and say, Mr. Chairman, we've hit 5 minutes. And then the discussion is done, and we will go on to the next. Note that during that time, you're having a conversation with me, with the board, but with me as its chairman. And so I'm encouraging you not to get frustrated with anybody in the audience and turn around and start talking to them because you didn't like the last person, what they said. Don't do that. And don't do the same for us. And if we can get through this with some respect and civility, I would greatly appreciate that. With that, the first person to come up and share with the board, Carlotta Wolf, wants to talk about safety and mental health. Hello.
I will not need all of the 5 minutes. I have a question that has been going through our household since April when the BB gun came to school, and we had reached out to a couple members of the school and asked, how will we prevent this and what will we do to keep our kids safe in school? And we are still asking the question. We have 4 children, one that has, 2 that have graduated, and one that is still here, and one that will be back because he deals with mental health and is currently not here, but will be coming back. And having a hard time sending our senior to school because we are still asking, what are we going to do to keep weapons out of the school? And taking care of mental health is a huge concern, but it takes a long time and cannot be fixed overnight. So we have asked again, we have sent out emails and still asking. What are we going to do to keep the weapons out of the school?
Let me make sure that I heard you. And by the way, the information you have here is your contact information so that we can reach out to you personally?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Like many others in the community, what you're asking is for a good answer as to what measures and what we're going to do to make sure that weapons stay out of our schools.
Yes.
No matter what the weapon is, how do we keep them out of our schools? And also knowing that that overall there's a mental health issue that has to be addressed, that's something that's more longer term, and I'm understanding is that what you're wanting is more of an answer to the immediate,
Yes.
as well as doing that.
Before our daughter is back in school, we're still asking.
Okay.
I mean, so that is our concern.
Someone will be getting a hold of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Burgot, French. Is the last name French? OTEC was one of the items.
Thank you for giving me time to speak today. It's Borjo, you're very close.
Borges Soft G.
So, my son is in OTEC, it's a morning class. And as far as with the soft reopening, I'm leaving this all up to him. What do you want to do? What are you comfortable with? And supporting him and his choices. He wanted to come this morning, and I really wanted him to hear Dr. Henry. And he was sent home because he is in the morning OTEC. While I understand he should be in OTECs in the morning, I do believe with the soft reopening, it's 4 days out of 2 weeks. And he should be able to make the choice to be here and be supported in being here rather than being sent back home. So I'm hoping you can kind of come up with an answer for that before next day comes up. For these students, just to put it in their hands. We're putting, virtual or in class in their hands. Let's put this in their hands too.
Okay, Lori, I know you have a second point, but let me go back to that one. I want to make sure I understand. You have an OTEC student who arrived today and was sent home, I guess, saying this wasn't supposedly his time.
Right.
And so what you're saying is then when is his time, and why wasn't he able to participate?
Yeah, just think with these 4 days for the next 2 weeks, that should be
Something for us to look at and
student's choice.
consider.
Right.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand that point before you go to the next one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that he can gain from these 4 days, and I do believe he should be allowed to be a part of it. I really wanted him to hear Dr. Henry. He wouldn't sit through the Zoom with me. I did, and I was really looking forward to being involved in that today. He snuck back in and didn't tell me he got sent home, so
I didn't hear
find
you.
out.
Okay, good. You also wanted to talk about the third-party investigation.
Yes, I understand there hasn't been a meeting on that yet since the last meeting. I know you were going to set up a subcommittee for that. I believe this is something that needs to be started yesterday and the week before. It should be a much higher priority. I was quite surprised to see the subcommittee wasn't on today's agenda. I do understand you're having extra meetings, but I would like to see that subcommittee set and making some progress quickly. The longer we wait, it's not great for optics. And it's something that, as far as this type of investigation, it needs to be fresh on everyone's minds. And 6 weeks is a little long to the point of not even, and I know with holidays and with everything that happened, it's not a quick thing to happen, but I would like to see it happen quickly going forward. There was one other thing, and these students, I hope you look at them as young adults and kind of take their feedback on what they'd like to see. You can ask me as a parent what I think is most important, like we did in the town hall, and I can say mental health. But I answered for my son, and his option was he wanted to be detectors. I wouldn't have thought that would be his choice. And I do think that maybe these questions should be asked to these students. We keep calling them children, and I want to say he's still my baby. He is my baby, but he's a young adult. And all of these kids they're young adults. And I hope that when you look into these things, you try to get some more feedback from them and less from us. I'm not saying take us out of the conversation, but what they say might be completely different from what all of us adults think. And that doesn't always mean that because they're young and inexperienced, they're not right. They're the ones who live the trauma. They're the ones who are going to live with this the rest of their lives. And they're the ones who should be able to make a decision and be able to tell you what makes them feel comfortable to come and put their care back to you during the days. So I would like that. One last thing, he was, this is, he was pulled over a few days ago, and it was a really kind of silly thing. His third brake light wasn't working, but he called me while 2 Oakland County police officers pulled him over, both coming up to the car, and he was nearly in a breakdown. I hope that maybe somebody can reach out to the police department in Oakland County and just kind of have a talk with them about. Another friend of his had the exact same thing happen, so it wasn't just my child. I believe the other kid was speeding. Maybe it's more of a danger thing in that instance, but I just hope that maybe somebody in the school can have communication with Oakland County and say, you gotta remember these kids, their trauma. The last time they saw an officer was when they rushed into a school to get them out. And it takes them back there. And we all know everything we've heard is there's trauma. We don't want to we don't want to induce more trauma in these kids. And I know we're all trying that as a community. I just don't know if it's something that the officers are, I know they're doing their jobs, and I don't blame them in that way, but I hope that maybe somebody can reach out for our kids and just say something about that. And another thing, when I did speak to, it was the village chief of police, not the same department, but one thing that he and I talked about was maybe having some more safety meetings for the kids in school.
We are at 5 minutes, Mr. President.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, I just want to make sure that I got your points. We're going to work backwards. The last one was just making sure that we have more safety meetings with kids, that maybe the law enforcement out in the community have some sensitivity to the kids that they're pulling over for violations. I can tell you that I know that there are some plans to get our young adults feedback. It's in the process, so I just want you to know that. The third party, get into it and get it done. It is on the agenda. We just wanted to get open and get started with what's going on. And then I will work with Cabinet to make sure someone contacts you about the OTEC and how that occurred.
OTEC is here this morning, so I imagine staff member gave the wrong information. I apologize.
Yeah, he went to the
But
office.
we made sure that they were welcome. They had the choice of going to OTEC. Otherwise, I believe we had a lot of logistics with putting the plan together. So OTEC was hearing the comments of the kids, so I apologize. Mr. Wolf addressed some of them. I don't think he's like that really quick. You can definitely come on Thursday. I will make sure that problem is fixed. Thank you for the problem. If we want to.
So thank you for bringing it up, and Ken, thank you for the immediate response. So he's welcome to come on Thursday, and thank you.
Yeah, and just with the safety thing, it could be about everything, not just here, things like what to do in traffic stops.
Yes. There's a couple sheriffs up there, they might have heard you. All right, thank you. Greg, you want to talk about status of firearm detection, K9 team, elite detection, K9?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read that the school is considering having full-time firearm detection teams, and I'm just curious about the status of that.
I don't have a status update, but we can get one. I know that there have been conversations with the cabinet and the safety protocols, and everything from dogs that do different things to ones we own, ones we don't own. So can I have someone from cabinet get with you in the next day or two?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Given that there's more than just the person asking the question, and as we have the ability to answer those questions, can there be a space on our website that when those questions are answered, it can be put on the website so that the general public would know what that is, rather than just the individual that asked the question. I think it's very important that we get to that point. It's not just one person that has maybe that question.
Correct.
Another question. It should be logged in, so that's where we should be going for information, is getting to that spot where everybody that has maybe a similar question to that can look it up and reference it.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that we're discussing is when you got to assume that when one person asks a question, more than one has the same one. And so rather than end up answering 6 people in an email, put the question on a website and then have it there for everybody. And so I think that is something that we're working on. And would someone from Cabinet turn the volume up on that microphone there, just so that I hear better when someone's speaking? See where the volume setting is on that, please. On that, right up, yep. Thank you so much. And by the way, what I'm doing is writing notes and cabinet members' names and those kinds of things on these cards so that when they all get handed back, we know how to get you some of the answers that you're looking for. And yes, I believe that we should start answering globally so that we can get those out.
Well, didn't Jill say in her safety update that she's putting, am I speaking out of turn, that you are doing a frequently asked questions, if you will?
Using the teletown hall questions.
Teletown hall, different emails that you've gotten, the Oxford Strong email as well, obviously the cards as well.
Yeah, we've got a number of questions from the telehall that we didn't get to, right? So those
Oh, I know.
all going to be on there.
Right.
All right. Jenny Prather, secure gun storage is a topic. Hello.
So my name's Jenny Prather, and we've lived in Oxford for 20 years, but I'm a new family to Oxford High School. My son went to a private school before this. And I just want to give you a little backstory about our personal situation. So my son has only been in school for 3 months. He loves it. He was so happy to be there. He's so happy to be back now. He was really disappointed all the time he was out of school. As a parent, I was sad, but then I decided in order to move past my sadness, I started to get angry. And I started to think of ways that I could be helpful to my son and helpful to my community. And one of the things that I did was I started learning about how do people properly store weapons. I had no idea. It was completely not on my radar before this, but now of course it is. So I found this wonderful organization called Be Smart, and what they do is they teach people how to advocate for others so that they can absolutely keep their weapons, but please store them in a way where the ammunition is not kept with the gun and the gun is properly locked in the home away from where a child or a loved one who isn't feeling mentally strong might be able to get to the weapon. So what I'm asking of the district and hopefully the school board is that you would consider working out some sort of a messaging plan where you could train parents and caregivers in ways to properly store weapons. Because right now, approximately 4.6 million children are living in a home with an unsecured weapon. And that's why we keep hearing the sad stories about children finding guns and accidentally killing their siblings or whatnot. So my heart was broken, and this is what I thought that I could do to help. So, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is my new passion, because I don't want anyone else to have to live through what we've lived through. And I'm happy to discuss
Jenny, thank you, and
Sorry.
no, don't be sorry. And the first thing I want to do is thank you for turning your anger into a solution and looking at ways in which we can get to this issue in all broader ways. And so what I heard you say was that there is an organization called Be Smart,
Yes.
and they have developed an educational program that if
Yes.
you bring it into your messaging, you can help your own community find ways, reasons and whys and hows to get their guns safely kept,
Yes.
locked up, so they can't be used.
That's right. And to me, it is not a political issue. I want everyone to do what they see right for their families and themselves. But if we just, there's a website actually, it's called besmartforkids.org. And they just teach you how to go about this in a sensible fashion, just to keep people safe. That's all.
Thank you, and once again, I want to thank you for turning your anger into a solution.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Candace, response for the future Oxford parent political advocacy. Hi.
So I kind of wrote an emotional piece, if it's okay if I read it.
Yes, please.
My name is Candace Schockinger. I'm part of a small group called Oxford Parent Political Advocacy that was started in the wake of November 30th. I'm a mom of 3, 1 sophomore, and 2 toddlers that are coming into the school district. It's been over 40 days since the tragedy. I just keep viewing the scenarios in my head that my son had explained to me. He had a 3-hole punch in his hands that he had intended to defend himself with. His teacher, a bust of some historical figure. Kids breaking legs off tables intended to fight for their lives. I was 12 when Columbine happened. I spent my formative years on learning what to do, what to say, what to look for. Watching harsh and emotional PSA videos on this exact situation. I was much older and at work when Sandy Hook happened. My son, the one who was wielding the 3-hole punch, was the same age as the victims at that time. Still, never did I think it would ever happen to my son and his peers, but never say never. Over these 40 days, I have seen so much support for the school and the administration, yet I have not seen concrete support from them to the students. Sure, they have had events, free one-time counseling, but some of those parents are now worried and struggling for crowdfunding for the future, for continued care. They were given clear backpacks without any of their input or peer-reviewed research presented. They were told they will have to go back to class before a new semester to spend a week looking in empty seats where their peers and friends sat. They were blown off during town halls when they had questions that they wanted answered. Speaking of the town halls, I believe it was said that transparency is a core value. What transparency? None of our real questions are being answered out of fear, not actually what's the right thing to do by our kids. I asked parents, do you even know who your counselor is now, if they were involved in the decisions in that day? I've seen a lot of fellow community members and parents tell those of us that feel differently to just move. So much for unity. Don't we want to be the change? Don't we want to show strength? What do we have to do to make sure that members and administration are fully qualified for the positions that they're in? What do we have to do to fully support teachers who are calling out all the red flags and were failed? What do we have to do to make sure that we have enough counselors and mental health professionals available that are qualified in the seats that they sit, making the decisions that they make? What do we have to do to get a fully formed social emotional learning K-12 curriculum in all schools so that kids like Ethan, who don't have parental support, don't fall through the cracks? Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Do you want to continue this insanity, or do you want to be the change and show the world what Oxford Strong should really be about?
Hold on a second, please. Okay, well, write the notes. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the kids in the room. That was tough. But one of the concerns you have, and I got this in a second column, if we're going to be the change, I'm going to work backwards. If we're going to be the change that we want to be, because we don't want to fulfill Einstein's proverb, what you're saying is we need to provide more support for the kids.
For the long term.
Yes.
For the long term.
That this can't be temporary, it can't be just now, it can't be one time with a counselor. We need to provide something, and I'm going to attach that to the fact that the social emotional curriculum-based system that's embedded in a school district. Also a frustration with not enough transparency. Get the questions answered. Get the questions answered. You have them, we've recorded them, get them answered. And making sure that people in positions are rightly qualified.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Corrine, safety, procedures, policy are listed as some topics. Hello.
First, I just want to acknowledge how difficult it's been for the victims, the families, our community, and I know for you all. This has just been the hardest lesson that we could all learn from. I had notes that they were on my phone, and my phone just died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's okay. So I'm just going to go from the top of my head. I guess what we need as parents is reassurance. I've lost trust, and I know that trust takes time, and it takes, some proof. I keep replaying that day. I was in a lockdown in one of the schools. My daughter was in a lockdown. She was not in the high school, safe from. But I just want to know. I was at the town hall meeting. My questions didn't get answered, and that's okay. But I want to know, why the zero tolerance policy wasn't put in place in November. It just seemed like there was a buildup, and even my daughter in middle school was feeling it. She has friends, of course, that have siblings in the high school, and so our middle school students are also hearing about the things that are showing up in the high school. I listened to the town hall meeting the other day, and Jill said that there was a zero tolerance policy in Oxford. I just want to know why that wasn't enforced on November 30th. I know you can't answer me right now, but that is a question I have in my mind. I want to know that if a child is exhibiting aggressive or questionable behavior, that there are measures that are going to be followed. For example, if that child is showing interest in guns outside of hunting, I know we live in a hunting community, my family doesn't hunt, I understand, but I think that the sheriff or deputy that is on site should have been privy to that information and called into that meeting. I want to know that if parents refuse to take their child home when asked, that instead of keeping them at school, sending them back to class, that the sheriffs or authorities will be contacted. The sheriff did say that if he was contacted, that they have policies and procedures and they could have followed up on that. I want to know that you will look into backpacks and lockers. My 7th grade daughter pointed out to me on November 30th, or it could have been the next day, but it was within that time frame, the day of or the day after, that in her middle school, that if there is, if they think that a child might be vaping, that they will search those backpacks. And so I don't understand why a backpack wasn't searched when there was a possibility of a gun. I guess I just want to say, I just would like the authorities brought in when it seems necessary. I'm also going to just throw out this next thing. I am in favor of metal detectors. I understand that there's, I think, 54 or 64. I didn't understand that here are so many doors. Obviously, they don't need to be put at every door. They should be at the main entrances. The children should come in through those entrances. I understand that it can be an inconvenience, and some people might think that it creates a prison-like environment. However, we are used to them at airports, at some sports arenas. I think for the safety and the emotional well-being of the children and the families and community, that would really help us. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. As you're going, I just want to make sure that I have everything. So you can stay there if you want. If I don't have everything, you can come back. I don't want you to move again. You opened up with the idea that you and other members of the community obviously have lost some trust. There needs to be reassurance. There needs to be some proof. And many of your questions are comparative. Like what about this? What about that? And certainly with an ongoing investigation with the Sheriff's Department and with the prosecutors, there is a limited things that we can say that surround that time period. And so one of the most frustrating things for you and us as a community is that we can discuss things that might affect the movement towards justice. But I would tell you that doesn't mean the information is not going to come. The more that case pursues, the more information that will come out. And so I just want to assure you and the community, it's not hiding anything. There are things that cannot be said. And I want to state why. I think that's important. But you are saying to us, what about metal detectors? I heard you say that if we suspected a kid vaping, we can search his locker and his backpack. Why don't we do that in other cases and other things and other concerns? The desire to get sheriffs involved in the process because they're the enforcement side of things, maybe earlier or in the process of these kinds of things when we're dealing with aggressive behaviors and those kinds of things. And some clarification, if we're talking about zero tolerance, as you mentioned, you're asking the question, does that mean it wasn't there before? Right? Does it mean it is there and not there before? And I think that is a question that maybe we might be able to start looking at and provide. This contact information is yours. All right.
Maybe share with us what your measures and policies are for those kind of situations when you bring a child in who is, exhibiting some kind of aggression. I feel like I have no idea what's happening. What is your procedure? And is it the same for everyone?
Yes. You're looking to understand in general a process.
Yeah.
That probably has nuances depending upon the situation, right? I understand, but I'll tie that into the explanation about zero tolerance. All right? Thank you. Carrie Sweeney, safety, policy procedures, and doors, unlock doors. Hello.
Hi, everybody. I just want to start off by telling you that obviously I've been living this nightmare with everybody. I have two boys that attend Oxford High School, a freshman and a senior. Both were in the school at the time. I was on my way to Ohio for a business outing that I had to go to, and I received a phone call from my freshman who had barricaded himself in the room to tell me that there was a shooter, and that I proceeded to hear 3 to 4 gunshots. So I also am suffering. Okay, then the silence came. So I'm advocating for my kids and everybody else's children. I want them to be heard. I think it's very important. So I've been asking them, and I've been giving them the choice to go back, and they did go back today. They didn't want to, but they decided they wanted to for their own reasons. I've asked them what would make them feel safe, and they said, well, you know, we went there today. They had all the feel-good moral support. They loved the doctor. They said they wish they had that type of environment going forward, including somebody like Dr. Henry. So all of that was awesome. I felt like, wow, that was really good that they got a positive out of today. They said, however, they mentioned that they did see kids walking in. There were some with bags. Nobody was being checked. They saw 1 to maybe 2 police officers for, I don't know how many students you have, 1,600. So I think for them, they wanted to see a greater presence of security there. They felt unsafe being that it's a very crowded school, not only here, but at the high school. Even before the shooting, they tell me how they were walking in halls like this, and now it's even greater of a fear because of what had happened. So there's so much movement in those halls. What can you guys do to try to combat that? And I have some ideas if I could get to that in a minute here. They also had said, you know, obviously the addition of metal detectors. My son wrote a note to the school, hasn't heard back on that, but he referenced, you know, what they do at the airports. That's just with, you know, that's his idea of it. And then obviously the clear backpacks are beautiful. They're great. However, my son wears baggy pants. He showed me how he can tape a gun to his leg. You have coats, you can put them in your coats. So how are you deterring that? That was something that was mentioned. And then as far as me in the future of our children and our future of the United States of America, we need to instill an emotional and mental health classes. I feel like there should be a mandatory class that they have to take, like gym, that will help keep them on track. And those students that don't have that support at home will know where to reach. And even those that do have support at home that may be introverted and not speak out, they have somewhere to talk, and they know how to express themselves. That should be mandatory. That came from me. And then lastly, I think the kids, and I'm speaking for the children and the young adults, would like a detailed list of exactly what security measures are going to be taking place before they enter that school, before they feel safe. How many cops will be present, or sheriffs? Where will they be present? Will there be gun detectors? When will there be gun detectors? You know, these questions are hanging out there, and our children have no answers, and they're supposed to make a decision. I'm giving my children the decision to go back. They don't have anything held on to except for the love, which is amazing, and I commend you all for that. It's been great. But the real security, how are you going to stop those guns or weapons from getting in the school, and what security presence are you going to have for those children? We have not heard. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And stay there just for a second. 2 boys in the high school. They did choose to go back today. I'm sorry that on your way to Ohio you had to hear gunshots over the phone. Very pleased that, like Dr. Henry, so many people have been blessed by his ability to communicate what they're feeling, what they're going through. Did you say that today kids came in with backpacks?
Well, they didn't specify backpacks, but they had said they had seen people walking in with something. I think their concern overall was there wasn't anybody at the doors or being checked. Now, I'm going to speak on my behalf. I'm walking in here, I walked in here 6:15. There was the gentleman, obviously with the camera bag and phone. You know, there's people walking in, there's nobody at the door. I could have easily walked in and planted a bomb or a gun anywhere in here. And I was pleased to see that there were some sheriffs over here when I sat down. But the fact of the matter is there's open doors and there's no security. And especially during this time, and it should be forever, obviously, there's nobody here. Anybody can put anything anywhere. I watch people walking in. No one's watching. If they're watching, they may be. I just don't know. But
The important thing is the kids went home feeling like they didn't sense a security presence. Although it may have been there, because there may have been
they said very little. They said there was a gentleman outside, and they did see one inside. And I think they were expecting a little bit more of a sheriff presence.
Got it.
Or security, whomever. Somebody armed guard, whomever.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry.
Carrie.
Carrie.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're asking us to also think about when we return, how can we address the fullness of the hallways?
It was a concern they had.
Yep, I've got it. Metal detectors, clear bags. I think one of the things that Mrs. Lamont has said for some time now, measuring the efficacy of the bag, is it so much for actual security? Is it for emotional support? And that's being studied, as well as the same thing with metal detectors. But I'll let her address those things. Social emotional learning is probably one of the things that I hear talked about the most, is how to embed that inside the curriculum. And so at the end of the day, if they're going back to the high school on day X, what security measures are you putting in? What does that look like quantitatively?
Correct.
And do I have it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know there's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Cooper, safety, and also what I think is funding opportunities.
Hello.
Hello.
I, like all of you, I'm still riding this roller coaster, but before I do get started, I was thinking about it today, and today is 42 days. I think that number has some significance for us. We have our 42. But I think about David and his family, and those other 3 children, and all of our children. And I just can't think enough about them. The only thing that we can offer them, again, is change. And this isn't the first time that I've had this conversation. I was here last time. And this is not the first time that these questions have been presented. And it's been 42 days. And there's been limited answer. What we're looking for, again, aside from a teletown hall, is a formal sit down to have a communication. And that could be uncomfortable because people have questions, or it might not be as bad as we might think it would be. Because we can't heal without conversation. I said it last time, conversation is not electronic. It doesn't work that way. I'm very frustrated that the conversation hasn't been had with our children, with the exception of through the emails and maybe a call. I watched yesterday as my daughter went back into the high school as a cheerleader, and it wasn't a good experience for her. It wasn't a good experience to receive the email that she did in the way that said, "We're going back. We're going to tear off the Band-Aid and let's get it started." It would have said, if I were doing it, not that I'm a specialist, the fact of the matter is, "Hey, we're getting ready to go back. I need to know what you guys need." Our children. And I've been over this before. I know we talked to experts about school shootings, but the fact of the matter, if you look at any of the research from the schools that have already gone through this, the experts that are most often overlooked are the students, who are young adults. They're our future, and they have a lot of input. And some might feel comfortable in doing it, and some might not. And my daughter, and I made that very clear based on that circumstance, I said, "Look," I said, "I'm just being honest with you." I was grateful because the coach called me back, and I said, "She's not going to tell you the things that she wants to say. She doesn't feel comfortable doing that because she wants to make sure she's not disappointing you, because the child is worried about making sure that they're not letting us down, which is upsetting. So when you guys bring the students back into the high school before having the conversation, you skip the key component. And it's frustrating. They needed a forum. And it's, again, they might feel comfortable having us there, and I know a lot of the high schoolers don't want their adults around, but the fact of the matter is they might feel more capable of saying something when I am present, because it's going to be different when I'm not there. And then they'll come back and tell me the facts of the matter, and then I have to go through the cycle of submitting an email and then not hearing anything back, or just no communication. So I'm suggesting that we can solve that problem by having active communication. Again, so that's part. The next thing in regard to funding, I've done a little bit of researching, and we've had conversations regarding COVID money that has been available. And based on our research, and you guys can let me know if I'm wrong, it seems that in all of the time and all of the funding from the COVID money that has started, there should be about $12 million or so, from what I understood. And there wasn't great transparency. There was an email that went around in November that said, how would you like to see this used? And I said, geez, I missed that email. And I'm sure other people did, because from what I understand, only 600 people responded, and that's not a great, I don't think that's a really great voice for our community. That money does have purpose, and it should be specified in certain ways, and it should be allocated through the voice of the community. That conversation still needs to happen, because I don't even know if that money's been used or what's available, because we sure have need for money. I understand that. And that would be great to utilize in a way for mental health, mental and emotional health. I also hear that I'm worried about counseling for children, that, you know, after the four weeks, then it's going to be private pay for some people. I'm worried about the people that don't have the money to do that, or the ones that do, but it's taking $500. I'm already at 5 minutes. 1 minute left. All right, so $12 million, where's that money going? I need to see that in transparency and conversation. My next point is I want to speak about the teachers and the voice of the teachers, and I know I spoke with some teachers that have felt comfortable reaching out to me, and from what I understand, they haven't had great voice in a subcommittee to help kind of heal this process. The teachers are the backbone of our whole process. The teachers and our students. They know what's going on, they see the behaviors. There's lots of things in the school district that need to be addressed, not only in our school district, but in the United States. That includes children that are unruly, unsafe, and shouldn't be necessarily in class, and it's brought to people's attention and it's not addressed. That needs to be addressed. If we say that our hands are tied in handling that, you as an administration need to go to the state, as well as we are, to ask what we can do to make that different. That's on you guys. Don't tell us that there's a problem and say, well, our hands are tied. It's our responsibility and your responsibility to speak on behalf of the safety of our children.
5 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Hold on just 1 second. Dividing this into two factors. Key things I heard, and yes, I remember you presenting last time. Thank you. It seems to me from the teachers or the kids, you're talking about the fact that sometimes the people that are missed the most are the experts, and they're the experts because they're in it, right? They're in it every day, and so I caught it, and that we're not and overall we may not be transparent enough. We need to get answers to questions, and you've been yearning since the last meeting to have some face-to-face town hall type meetings that are not messaging emails and not teleconferences, but something like this. And so I've circled that. And then you shifted to the finances. And what are we doing with some of that, the COVID money that might be able to use in some different ways? And let's get transparent about that. And how about thinking about having a discussion about that as well, and how to use it for some of the things that we're dealing with because of what has taken place. Maybe even helping someone with counseling payments because maybe they don't have the insurance to cover it, or whatnot. Let's look at monies available to help people get through this. Do I have it?
And if we don't, and part of the thing that we talked about in the meeting, if we don't, and we need to advocate as a community on a legislative level to get more money, we're happy to do that. But again, that's a communication to say, look, you know, we need to, it's one thing to say we need to do better, but we have to have a plan to do better. It makes a change, because that's the thing. Talking about doing something and doing it are obviously two different things. But I believe that we could do better, and we're willing to help. but it has to come from the communication from you guys to let us know what we actually need. Sometimes it's not a pleasant conversation.
I get it. Thank you.
So and then don't forget about the teachers' input.
Yep, I got that down. Teachers. George, safe storage, legislation, and resolution.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the issue of safe storage resolution to follow up on some of the points that were made earlier. After the tragedy of November 30th, I was shocked to learn that Michigan does not have a safe storage law. That is a law that requires those who own firearms to keep them secure in their homes. Then I found out that Texas has this law. I couldn't believe it. So I think that after yet another school shooting that we've seen too often in this country, that nothing was going to happen. But we do have an opportunity. There is legislation, as I'm sure you all know, in front of the state Senate that addresses safe storage laws. There's also one that has been introduced in Congress. I think it's very simple, it's straightforward, it's practical. I think we should be pounding the pavement to get this done. We finally have an opportunity, however small, to take some steps to maybe prevent something like this happening in some other community. So, Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Throne, your voice is so important in this. I have made my voice heard, but what a statement it would be if you communicated your support, if you support this, for legislation that we have ongoing. I think that that we can do a lot more than we're doing in this area. I know your job isn't to legislate, but it's also to advocate. So it's my hope that leaders in this community, in this township, this village, this school board, will stand up and take advantage of this opportunity to finally do something. It will say a lot about Oxford if we can stand up and say, we're not going to take this anymore. It's small, it's not going to solve every problem that we have, but it is a step, and over time it can make a difference. And I think it would be an important legacy that we can set for ourselves coming out of this. The other thing I'd like to add, while you cannot obviously introduce legislation or have a role in that process, I understand that. I am advocating here for a resolution in support of safety measures. It would represent a powerful statement coming from this community and from this board, given that surrounding communities, townships, and school boards have already made such resolutions. So I encourage you to consider that. I hope you do.
Thank you, George. Thank you. And you said it. If we're going to make steps towards change, one of the things that you're recommending that we consider, as we have done in the past, of making resolutions on things that we believe the state or the county needs to hear or understand, is how about if we created a board resolution that supported the current Senate bill? Thank you very much. search, and return to school, I think, are the three things on your sheet.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. So I have three girls. A proud 2020 graduate of Oxford High School. She's now at Michigan State in the Honors College through her hard work and the academic support she received here. I have a junior at the high school who was at the school that day, and she attended school today as well. And I have an 8th grader as well. We've lived in Oxford since 1999. I was a remote worker before remote working was cool, and we can live anywhere near a major airport, so we choose to live here. I'll start with back to school today. Thought it was tremendous, the feedback I received from my student and her friends. And I want to start with the kids. I want to thank the kids. 88% of those kids put their faith in us today. Put themselves back out there. I think that says a lot about those kids. That's nothing, I mean, everybody's on a different path. We have 1,800 kids all on individual paths, but I think that says a lot about the school, the community, before this incident, that 88% of those kids decided to return today. I want to thank the teachers. They're day-to-day in and out of that classroom. They understand these kids. They love these kids. Can't say enough about their return. The hard work of the administration and the staff to pull this together. Yeoman's work by all there. The mental health, Chrysler's, counselors, faith leaders, and it is also Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, I believe. I'd like to thank law enforcement for their help and presence as well. So again, thank you for those efforts. On the teletown hall, I believe you had upwards of 4,000 participants on those calls. And I think that says the importance, and you've heard it time and time again, of communication. I would highly encourage a regular schedule of those teletown halls going forward. Unfortunately in today's society, if somebody doesn't have answers, there's speculation, conjecture, and social media quickly fills that space. So the more we can put resources towards communications, the FAQ pages on websites, the video messages, you can't over communicate. And again, you've heard it too. Look, my vote was completely different in the teletown hall than my child's. She said she would like to see school look like TSA pre-check walking in, which was not my vote in terms of the security measures. So I think it's really important that these kids are listened to. They've grown up, they're young adults, but they really had to grow up quickly, and we owe them their voice. Can't read my own writing here, so I'm analog. This doesn't run out of batteries. So, and just on the superintendent search, there's going to be a leadership change, obviously, here at the school. And I would point you to, and I'm sure you've done a tremendous amount of research, I would point you to the University of Colorado Center for the Study and Prevention of Violence. It forms, shortly after Columbine, and I've talked to both Columbine survivors, Parkland parents, myself personally, and one of the things that they really stress and have researched is the culture at the school, and how the culture of the school, really forms the basis of safety, and the superintendent of the school is the cultural leader. So I'm convinced you will do a great job finding the next leader that has strong academic credentials. But let's look at those other skill sets in terms of culturally where they're going to take this school during their tenure. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So 3 topics. I don't think words can describe the earth that was moved to make all this happen. And our cabinet, our administrators, our faculty, and our kids. Team O showed up today, and so thank you for recognizing that. A ton of work was done. Like a lot of others, you have 4,000 people that participate in a teleconference, and you answer 25 questions. We got a lot catching up to do with communication, and so there's much discussion about getting regular responses, getting answers on a FAQ, but also doing some things video, also doing some things face-to-face. So, but thank you for those, and yes, I've heard several times the need to listen to the kids. And I think the one thing that in the superintendent search that you pointed out is think about the culture that leader is going to propagate.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one other thing too, in terms of the communication, I don't know if you've hired a crisis communications firm, but again, we've thrown resources a lot of different areas. I found in my business experience, sometimes we're so close to a situation, and I know this happened with, and it's not intentional, but I know there was an email went out, it was about the middle school reopening, but it wasn't clear that it was just the middle school reopening, and I think sometimes, again, well-intentioned, but sometimes we're so close to it. So maybe bringing in a crisis communications firm that can work with the current staff to review, come up with a schedule of communications and what they need. Again, just so we can start to reduce some of the folks that are kind of filling in the space with their own answers.
Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
Emily Lesnow.
Hi guys.
Hello.
If you remember me from last time, I'm a special needs student in our district. One of my issues with communications from his school is that I don't get it. The ECS program at Leonard Elementary does not get communications from Leonard Elementary. We do get the district emails. I don't know how many programs we have throughout the district at all the buildings, but especially at this time, I think it's really, really necessary for us to know what's going on, where our children are at all times, just so that we feel like we're more of a part of things, and for security purposes. It'd be awesome if I know what was going on at his school. The second point I made on my card was our zero tolerance policy. Most special needs kids have social and speech development problems, so they are not operating as a child their typical age operates. So when we have our zero tolerance policy, my concern is that one of these children is going to repeat something they heard, have zero understanding of what they're saying, and go around doing it because it gets a response from kids and they laugh and they think it's funny. Or, especially as they're younger and can't communicate effectively, their response is to react physically. I know my sons come home with bite marks that is just part of the game in preschool, but I know that happens in the early elementary grades too, where the little kid can't say why they're upset, or why they're angry or scared, so they're going to kick, they're going to hit, they're going to shove another student. So I just want to make sure that that's addressed. I assume in the special needs classes, there's more leniency, but then I just wonder about the kids who are integrated into the traditional classrooms, how is it handled for them? And then my third thought was that we have all these crisis specialists here to help our kids, and do we have any that are trained in neurodivergency? Because these special kids think differently, they process differently, and they communicate very, very differently. And so if we have someone that's trained specifically to work with autism, who's trained to work with OCD or ADHD or any of the myriad of things our children may have, we can help them acclimate to the school better. And like I said, I just didn't know if that was an option, if that's something we're pursuing, but I think it could be very, very helpful to make our special kids feel heard and understood and welcome back to the school. And that's all I got.
Emily, thank you. A special needs student, and one of the things you're saying is that you're in a building, but you're not getting the communications that the children in that building might get. And that right now, for the sake of keeping all communication, more would be better than not, the lack of. So you'd like to get those school building communications as well, because embedded in there might be information
Yes.
about. Okay, so I got that, and that was Leonard, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, they're using zero tolerance and saying with these special needs kids that may be unknowingly repeating things and not understanding. I can tell you that those things are being discussed.
Awesome.
And that if in the midst of all of the individuals in our area that are coming in to help as counselors and those kinds of things, I want to make sure I heard it right. Neurodivergency.
Yes.
Is a technique that's used, and you're wondering if any of them have those specialties because they could help with some of these children.
Neurodivergency is just what we call children that are not neurotypical, which is
Got
someone
it.
that has no diagnosis for.
So some
Yeah.
who are specialized
Yep.
in that.
Just, I know when my son went to see speech therapist, we saw someone that was specialized with autism.
Got it.
She has learned autism frontwards, backwards, so that she knew special ways to approach him and what he needed. And so, obviously, my son is too small to benefit from this service, but I know that our kids that are older and can communicate more effectively would probably benefit from someone that can speak specifically on their level to their needs.
Thank you for keeping our eyes on them. Thank you.
Bye.
Chalmers Fitzpatrick, procedures and policies.
Good evening, thank you. So my name is Chalmers Fitzpatrick, and I have two daughters who attend Oxford High School, a senior and a freshman. I asked questions during both of the recent town hall meetings I was called upon. But I heard other callers that also asked similar questions. And I felt that the responses did not adequately address their questions head on. Talked around the question, more about future security considerations, but not what policies and procedures are in effect now. That, I feel, is the elephant in the room, at least for me. And you say, safety, both physical and emotional, is the #1 priority, but yet we haven't addressed how threats are being treated now that school is back after this horrific tragedy. The talk about metal detectors, ammo sniffing dogs, clear backpacks, and more therapists and armed security, all of that make complete sense. It's expected, it's reactive, and it's mandatory that I think we look into these and what we can do in the future to tighten up security, protect and for the mental health and support of our children. But it's the now that I'm concerned about. I wrote a letter. Jill did reach out, Mrs. Lamont, and spoke with Dan as well. So I had the ability to speak directly about my email and had a very open discussion. She cited that due to the ongoing investigation in the board and administration, been prevented to talk about a lot of what the policy and procedure protocol was then at the time of November 30th. But what I don't get, and I get that, and I don't expect any answers leading up to November 30th and what we're doing to change or not change, etc. That'll all come out in the coming months. What I'm talking about is just about what policies and procedures is the school taking now, and then communicate it to the parents, staff, students, and community. When there is a horrific event, take 9/11. The whole country went on lockdown. I commuted over the Golden Gate Bridge during that time with armed machine gun military protecting our national landmark. It lasted for many, many months. Our airports are forever changed. It's been discussed tonight. We now know never to joke about a bomb or a gun in an airport. Zero tolerance is in effect after 9/11, and we got it, we changed our behaviors. We are constantly reminded of the zero tolerance of their policies the minute you go into an airport. You've got the online checking in on your app process, it's there. It's a multi-channel communication, it's repeated, and we've gotten the message. The district, you're not saying what that policy is in place. You haven't spoken about it since December 15th, and it's the day after the last board meeting. Without giving anything up to hurt the investigation, the school board should be on high alert. We should all be on high alert now after this November 30th tragedy. I know maybe you can't communicate it in paper, that's what I understand, but it does not make sense to me. You have an outside counsel, you have a PR firm, there has to be a way to wordsmith this. And it can be done and it needs to be done. We need to hear it and know what these policies and procedures are that the school is taking today. Not then, that will come out later, but today. My understanding is that every threat, from what I was told in my conversation, is treated as an 8410B threat. Everyone in the audience here, if you don't know what that is, it's a threat that is treated as an imminent threat according to the administrative guidelines. I think the school board should post these guidelines again and address that today we are treating all of these as a 10B, an 8410B. That is the case. If that is the case, that's great news, and it's what I want to hear in these communications. You speak of trust and transparency, so please tell us in every way possible that 8410B is carried out. That doesn't have anything to do with the investigation. It has to do with protecting our kids and staff, making us as parents who are consumed with fears, we send our kids back to school, feel an inkling of comfort. If that is the case, then we can communicate to our kids who are, our kids of all ages, how this new during this time, the sensitive time, that for the foreseeable future, you don't joke around about fights and drawings and certain words and phrases, or all of those have serious consequences. We work together to message this. It'll be difficult for youngsters, I get that, and there's probably some special considerations like we just heard, which is extremely important. But I think it's what we have to do at this time for our immediate future. To me, that is zero tolerance. I urge you to communicate to us what happens when the threat is acted on, current state. Purposes along the action is immediate and will lead to dismissal.
And it's a big part of the trust issue we're having right now is as parents, we know what's expected of our kids, but we don't have an expectation from you at this point. What we thought was the expectation didn't happen. I drove my son to school this morning after debating if he was coming. We had our plan, we were going to leave early, go to Tim Hortons, get some food, get there early, have some conversations so I could feel out how he was feeling and he could share how I felt. We couldn't even do that. To be honest with you, neither one of us could eat. We felt sick to our stomach. We were nervous and anxious. So as we pulled in, I said, would you rather sit, park, and talk, or just me pull up and drop you off? And his response was, I would rather just be dropped off because it's easier. It was much harder for me, but it was easier for him, so that's what I did. After I dropped him off, I was anxious all the way to work. And when I was at work, I had to sit in the parking lot for 5 minutes before I could go in, even though I was 2 hours late because I took that time to take my son to school. So I could steady my hands because I didn't want my coworkers to see me that way. And I think that's what a lot of us felt today. That being said, how do we fix that and how do we move forward? In-person communication with our students. My son is hurt and he has trust issues and he's angry. The see something, say something, that's been in effect. But it didn't work. When these kids talked about it, they were told not to. I know that to be true. This whole entire year has been building this toxic environment, and it was one thing after another. I don't think we ever got the true story on some of the threats that came through. In fact, I know we weren't because we were told some of them were taken care of before our students got there, but there were videos and pictures that said that was not true. So transparency is very important at this point, and that is where we're lacking our trust as not only our students, but as parents with you. We're all human beings, and I understand we are all suffering. Although I'm angry, I understand you guys are also human, and I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy what some of you are feeling based on your experiences. However, accountability. We're human beings, and when this first happened, it took so long to hear from you. And what I thought was, as a human being, my first reaction regardless, not saying we were responsible, not even having to say you're sorry because that makes you look responsible. That's not what I'm saying. But I would have to put the human connection first before the job, before the money, before the investigation. And I think that's what we felt was lacking, and I think that's what our kids felt was lacking, was the compassion, the eye contact, the reaching out, not a cold email, not a YouTube video that we can't comment on or communicate back with, not this, where I can look you in the eye, but I don't get a response back. Not a town hall where our questions are screened and we can't see you. That's not communication. And that's what our kids are missing, and that's what we're missing, and that's where the disconnect is. And it's also the disconnect between the parents. We have those who fully support the administration and have no questions about negligence or accountability or transparency. And then you have other parents who do have questions and concerns. And I'm seeing a very clear divide. Although we are all Oxford, we are all encompassed in Oxford Strong. It's not one-sided or the other. We're all part of the community. So we have to learn to be able to communicate. This is kind of off of that subject, but we were talking about the town hall and I wrote it down. I think the survey should be saved for an email. I felt they took up time for parents to ask questions. It was something that could have just been a simple email. It would have allowed for more questions. As far as safety and training, I would like to know what training the staff is getting at this point to learn to better identify threats. And how will we know what that is? When is it happening? We need to feel comfortable putting our most precious commodities back in their hands. And right now we don't feel that way. So we need those answers to be able to move forward. I don't know if I'm going to continue to send my kids to Oxford schools. I have 4 more years because I have a middle schooler. And until I can get those questions answered, I can't even give my son that answer.
We are at 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, Andrew, just real quick. I think what you're reading by the code of conduct and the contract is that it goes both ways, and you want us to be accountable for the fact that, one, we took way too long to communicate back.
Yes.
That because of that, there begins to develop a lack of trust, and all of a sudden it's what's going on, and it leads people thinking about that. And number 2, just the fact that the overall human contact was missed. Yes. Written words, emails, screen calls, videos are all one-way communication. Yes. And it's lacked what we have right now, yes, a communication between 2 people. And we're not going to regain that trust until we get back and have that kind of conversation. And then secondly, be able to discuss and talk about what we're doing with safety training and identifying threats.
Yes.
Thank you. Jennifer Clemens.
I wasn't really planning on coming up because it's been a pretty emotional day, but I just kind of want to go along with what some other people said about hearing from the students. We've had a rough ride in our house for the last month, and coming back today, it was a really hard decision, and I feel like if the students, if there was more transparency and the students had some voice, that today might have gone a little bit differently for some of them. I think that it was, first of all, let me go back a little bit. I really appreciate everything that the administration is doing. I think that the back to school plan in my mind And then today we kind of took those 2 steps back. And I feel like everyone else is saying, if the students may have had some input, it could have gone a little bit different today. My daughter came in and went to her classes, and like some other people have said, she looked at the empty seats and got a text from a student who was released from the hospital, and she just went downhill from there. And she really just wanted to see her friends and have more of an upbeat day and hug, and that didn't really happen for her. And as a parent, I don't know if we're going to have that chance again to get her here. So I just think that before they do go back to the high school, I hope that you will get some input from the students. I think that's just so important. In that town hall meeting last week, when the student asked, how are we going to feel the trust from you? I think that this is a really important way that we can make the students feel this trust and transparency. I think it's a step for them. And so I basically have everything to say that other people have said, and just kind of giving my family's unique situation. Our daughter's a senior, and my husband and I are thinking, you know, how is she even going to be able to manage going to a big college? Like, is this going to affect her life? So it's so important for us to get her back and for her to feel safe. And just, I think that she told me the other day, she said, the only people that I can talk to and say exactly what I want to say are my friends. So I just feel like if these kids can get together, some of them haven't seen each other for 42 days. You know, if they could just talk and hug and have more of just an open type talk, you know, have some adults in the room and bounce ideas off of each other. And I think that that would be so beneficial. And I hope that my family has the opportunity to get her back, because, like I said, it's been really hard for us and it's been a long road. So, I appreciate everything that everyone's doing. I really respect all of you. I know that your decisions are so hard, and I know that you are working so hard. I'm staff member too, by the way, so I feel it from both sides. But tonight I'm here as a parent, and our kids just really, really want to be heard. So I just want to ask for that too. Just one last thing too. We went to see Craig Scott, the Columbine survivor, at your church that night. And he had said something that stuck with me about when the kids went back to school, the parents all met that day hand in hand and just made a circle around the school for when the kids walked in. And I think that we need some more love like that for when our kids go back. Like, can we support them and just give them a big hug around the school? Or has anything like that been discussed? Everything seems so serious, and I want them to feel a little bit more light. You know, just today it was heavy, and I know it was going to be that way, but how can we lighten it up a little bit? So.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, there are people in the community reaching out to us as board members about what can we do days before the kids get there, the day of the kids there. Can we line quietly the street and just let them know we're here as love and support? Can we circle the building? There's been people wanting to pray around the building. So I just want you to know there are a lot of discussions going on about how can we as a community let them know as they go back to school that we're with them. Number two, we have to maybe do some thinking about communication, because parents don't feel like they're being communicated with and don't have some transparency about some key issues. And we have kids still yearning for the opportunity to be heard, and we have to look at addressing those issues. Thank you. Danielle, communication procedure policy.
Good evening. Danielle Krozak. I am the mother of a freshman at the high school. She's actually here tonight listening. Sorry, Madeline. On December 30th, I did send you all and many others an extensive email and feedback. I've shared feedback and questions and policies. I've offered reopening recommendations, including my daughter's feedback, my concerns as a parent, research that I've done, and also my unfortunate experience as a former Columbine community member many years ago. Lastly, I provided my experience of some of that. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
I shared my experience on some interactions and communications leading up to November 30th that really reinforced the need for proactive communication and transparent communication. And I want to share that. On November 11th, my daughter began texting me around 11:20 a.m., citing concerns of a threat and possible school shooting. I told her to remain calm. I told her to remain aware. I told her and encouraged her to talk to her counselor. I immediately emailed her counselor as well, and by noon I was on the phone with Mr. Wolf's assistant. I was assured at that time it was not a valid threat. I told Ms. Williams that while I appreciated her assurance today, this does not build confidence or trust in how threats are handled for tomorrow or the future. I requested to know how the school would be using this series of incidents, valid or not, related or not, didn't matter at the time, to regroup, review policies, procedures, ensure safety for students and staff, and take this opportunity to communicate clearly how threats are being handled and how teachers and students are supported. I said to her, and this is a quote, "I am sure the parents of Columbine and Sandy Hook felt safe taking their children to school that day. We need to be proactive." And she said she understood, confirmed the communication was coming, and that conversation has haunted me every day since, because I engaged and I was proactive and I was using my experience to help. 7 hours later, we received an email. The subject, concerns and rumors. There was no mention of zero tolerance. There was no mention on the education of guidelines. Is child mentioned 1084A or 1084B? There was no call to action for us parents to help educate and have a conversation with our kids. There was nothing proactive about that email or that day. Only a reactive response to the threat that was deemed invalid that day. It wasn't until I spoke to Jill, just Thursday evening, I had a great conversation with her as well. And over the weekend, I took the time to go back and I read every single email and watched every video that has been published since November 30th. And it was a snippet of statements made at the board meeting, the last board meeting, that actually allowed me to let my daughter go to school today. At the board meeting on December 14th, Jill gave her security update and she said these words at about 28 minutes into the board meeting. As we mentioned earlier, we have zero tolerance policy right now. Anything that is even remotely violent immediately goes to administration, to law enforcement, and requires the students to be removed from the school until we have a third-party mental health evaluation. That might seem extreme to some, but we are absolutely going to be initiating that and have already done so. Mr. Donnelly then asked her to confirm at about 29 minutes, what do you mean by zero tolerance? And she explained again, zero tolerance, there is no room for discretion right now. Any student who provides anything that looks remotely violent or in any way threatening is out of school. That's putting it simply. The very next day, we received an email message from Superintendent Throne, and right on the heels, another message from you, Mr. Donnelly. And both of these messages had the same statement.
We are
very clear.
5 minutes.
Can you wrap up?
Yes, like a minute and a half. In these statements, you state, moving forward, we are enacting zero tolerance policy regarding violent content of any kind, whether in word, deed, or on social media. You then explain the process of pulling in administration and law and removing the student from student grounds. Again, this is clearly guideline 1084B. Since December 15th, 10 plus emails have come out, videos have been published, 2 town halls have taken place, and these words have not been spoken. Again, Jill did mention lightly today, but they're not as strong as what you guys said on the 14th and the 15th, and they need to be. You need to remind us, you need to educate. Not all parents are here, not students are here. The policies are huge and long. They have to be repeated. They have to be proactive. Clear backpacks should be paired with educating us on the policy that you have opportunity for search and seizure. And you can check our kids' backpacks. Go ahead, check my kid's backpack. Educate me, pass out the backpack and give me the policy. We need, as many parents have said, we need to rebuild trust. My trust was lost on November 11th, not on the 30th. It was lost on the 11th. And you need us parents, because accountability is on parents, students, teachers, administration, and the board. It's all of us. But you have to be clear. Nobody wants to jeopardize legal process. Nobody wants to. I'm not asking anybody to. But we need to communicate today. Today. Thank you.
You set the backdrop of your communication with an issue that took place earlier in November, and that
November 11th.
Even when that took place and the responses back to it lacked a proactiveness, lacked a statement of, like, tell me that you've connected the dots with other things that have taken place and you guys are seeing something and looking at something.
Well, actually, we didn't need to connect the dots. I mean, yes, you need to answer that, but that's not what I was asking for. I was asking for, let's be proactive, educate us.
Right, not reactive.
Get us engaged.
Yes.
Let us help the community. Let us remind us to talk to our kids. We should be talking to our kids anyway, but.
And then you bring us to the last board meeting where some statements were made about 1084B and wanting to know why there seems to be a drift away from that. And let's be clear, let all of us parents know, right?
Repeat the message. We have to hear it.
Repeat the message over and over again so all the parents finally get that there is something that we're doing, and state it over and over again until it's clear.
My assumption is that's the policy today, and that's why Madeline went to school.
Understood.
If I'm wrong, I don't know that she's going on Thursday.
Understood.
Right?
Yes.
We need to know, and they need to feel safe. They need to know.
Yes. Understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I'm not sure, topic is all, A-L-L.
Hi there.
Hello.
I too wrote a super emotional piece. Right now, I thank goodness I got this pen in my purse. I'm a 1990 Lake Orion graduate and have 4 generations of family between Lake Orion and Oxford. I'm a Michigan State certified educator. I have practiced in Lake Orion and currently in Oxford. I'm a licensed realtor here in Oxford as well. I have had 3 children in the Oxford School District. 2 daughters in the district since kindergarten and both currently in the high school. I'm going to go really fast because I have a lot to say. This is the very abbreviated version of my story that day. While teaching a class, administration announced lockdown. Myself and other educators scurried students to lockdown. After lockdown was cleared, I heard other educators with Oxford High students speaking of an active shooter. With little internet service that day, I did not receive the distress messages my girls had sent me. I flee the school where I gained service and called my youngest daughter, who was screaming for her life. I immediately told office personnel I had to leave. I knew something was terribly wrong this day, after already have taken them out due to the 2 previous disconcerting school incidents that I felt, along with other parents, was minimized. I found my youngest to be at the house of my older daughter's friend. I would later learn she was with one of her best friends, not more than 2 minutes before her sweet life was taken. She had said to her, "Bye, I love you," and started away from her, only to get to the corner and hear gunshots, to which she flee outside of the building. My older daughter remained in the building on lockdown until told to evacuate. Details following possess no words. The following day, my husband and I stumbled across a voicemail of distress from my youngest daughter, with clearly the 5 gunshots in the background. We are left with questions what went wrong that day. The following is my truth and information. Why were the previous disconcerting animal incidents and school shooting rumors shunned by office personnel and administration? On those days, my husband and I were 2 parents who listened to our children and excused them from school while being addressed as overreacting. As an educator, I am a mandated reporter. Child protection law states I do not need my administration approval to initially report. What if this were reported to CPS immediately? There was clearly reasonable suspicion. Why was the backpack and locker never checked? This stuff should always be contained in a very rigid safety protocol. Was the school's public broadcast system sufficient that day? My daughter's teacher did not originally believe it was a true Alice lockdown. A student was released back out into the hallway after lockdown was announced, and my other daughter, while fleeing the school, ran into a friend with earbuds and blasting music so loud she heard nothing. I've heard the student and parent reoccurring narrative. Educators telling students that day to stop running, stop being dramatic, and there is no shooter. Why? As I stated earlier, my daughter was there with a group of students, her friends, outside of the classroom that day. The classroom door was locked. She thought because the teacher had not come from lunch yet, that's why the kids were congregated. What if the door had not been locked that day? In the last week's teletown hall, it was announced that students should undoubtedly return to the very hallway where the friends were gunned down. Aware that schools such as Sandy Hook and Columbine, where similar school shootings took place, were either completely structurally remodeled to look unrecognizable or destroyed and rebuilt. Besides consulting with mental health experts, is there scientific research-based evidence that was taken into consideration for the rationale of allowing students to utilize this hallway where their friends were lost? Moving forward, what can be done? What can we implement to make change? Provide public relation training to office personnel on how to appropriately address concerned parents. Enlist in district CPS liaisons to offer guidance. Require backpack and locker checks with any raised suspicion and 0 tolerance. Provide endless avenues of security. Bathrooms, possibly to have night locks. Safety, safety, safety. Our high school students are in doubt. Provide a more comprehensive public broadcast system to include every staff member to possess a walkie-talkie, etc. Implement a district-wide K-12 social emotional learning curriculum like Jesse Lewis's Choose Love program, born out of Sandy Hook, implemented across the U.S. and research-based. Academic learning cannot take place until the emotional side is cared for first. One more thing, all classrooms to remain unlocked for students to immediately enter. Academic counselors are not mental health counselors. Hire qualified and trained school psychologists and mental health counselors.
Thank you, Jennifer. First, other incidents that took place not too far in the future or in the past that may not have been dealt with from your perspective as significant. I got the impression maybe like they were blown off, not dealt with them in a way that was satisfactory. You talked about a couple times backpack searches and those kinds of things. The question of whether our broadcast system is sufficient or insufficient, I certainly can tell you is something that is being looked at. Sorry, what you and your daughters went through.
Thank you.
You talked about some children who heard different advice from faculty. Did everybody know what was going on? I think is one of your questions, because it appears that some people knew there was an active shooter where others thought that maybe it was a drill or something like that. Talked about teachers not being in a room. Other schools did rebuilding. Why are we kind of going back into the same space? I can tell you that some of that is simply because of some towns that have more than one high school or two high schools or buildings where they were able to spend a whole year remodeling or rebuilding or cutting off an edge of a wing or just taking the whole school down. So just know that it's not something that was not thought about, and experts did feed into that. Moving forward, you went on a litany, but making sure that the zero tolerance, that we're checking backpacks, that we're checking lockers, that we ultimately also are including a full front to back, top to bottom SEL program, and making sure that those who are counseling or caring for our kids have the qualifications necessary to do so.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Michelle, I think the topic you just had is concerns. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Probably going to end up saying a lot of what's already been said tonight, but I did want to piggyback on what I think Ryan was saying about the COVID funding survey that went out. I don't think I got it. I wonder if a lot of people didn't get it. Maybe with surveys, because it is hard, you get lots of emails during the day, maybe you're looking at it at work, whether or not you should be, but things like that. Maybe it goes out again, especially if only like 600 people. If that was a community, if that was a district-wide survey that went out and only 600 people answered, it's sort of important to know where that funding is going, especially if with the COVID funding, some of that is for mental health. When a friend forwarded me the email with the survey in it, it had, that was an option. Maybe it's something like, I think that there should be a third wave, I could be wrong, of grant money or the ESSR money coming. I'm not sure on that for sure. But if we know, if we get the survey results maybe, and we know people only chose, I think there were safety measures on there, but maybe now people are more concerned with mental health. So does some of that money then go towards that now that we know, that that's an option, or we're paying more attention to those kind of things, unfortunately now. And when, I should say too, I have a sophomore and a senior at high school. We're in the school on November 30th. Sadly, neither one of them went to school this morning. My senior just flatly said, I'm not going. I don't trust them. They don't know what they're doing. I'm not going. I'm never stepping foot inside another Oxford school ever again.
I think we might have gotten past that a little bit later in the evening. I'm hoping they both go on Thursday. I think it's important. I thought the presentation by Dr. Henry was great, and I really was sad that they missed that this morning. Hopefully maybe if that's available, if there's something for the kids that didn't feel comfortable going, maybe they could see his presentation or what he has to say, because I thought that he was great. With that, you know, a lot of people have been talking about how we feel the students haven't been heard. The students are saying they haven't been heard. My 15-year-old was listening to the telethon hall, and he's like, why haven't they asked us? Nobody's asked me anything. I've talked to other students. I've been working with a parent advocacy group towards better mental health in the schools, and they sort of reached out, just talking with some of their students and some of their students' friends. We sort of compiled, they gave us a bunch of questions, sort of like questions and comments. So specifically what some of the students are saying is, what has the administration done to regain our trust back? Why hasn't the administration reached out to the entire student body as a whole, but did so for our parents prior to opening? What policies and security has Oxford administration enacted to ensure something like this, November 30th, doesn't happen again? Why did you decide to go back in person to first semester classes for only a week, knowing full well students would be permanently missing from them, instead of doing virtual that week and starting back with a new schedule in classes in the second semester? The next one, I will never be able to return to OHS because the administration did not protect us. Children are dead and nobody lost their job, so I'm supposed to trust the people who ignored numerous signs and lied to us. Your job was to keep me and my friends safe, and you didn't. Shame on everyone who is creating more mental injury to students by not standing up to make personnel changes. I appreciate backpacks, comfort dogs, and counseling, but I am still disgusted. They didn't need to die. I am not alone in my feelings, and my friends agree with me. Definitely not Oxford Strong. I'm having a hard time trusting the school to keep me safe. They said not to worry when the bird thing happened in the bathroom, that they had investigated and taken care of. Did they? If so, why did they say it wasn't him? They said to lock down, and I think this is interesting because somebody, I think Jennifer was just mentioning this, how this child has said that they said to do a lockdown and that they would update us soon. They never came back on to say anything, not anything. I don't feel safe with how they have planned back to school. They have not listened to us, the students. One email said there is flexibility in how you return to school. The next, you need to choose in how you return. The next, work it out with your counselor. How is this straightforward or helpful? I am not sure how clear backpacks help. There are a lot of ways to hide things, which was mentioned earlier. My 15-year-old, I should say, when he heard about the clear backpacks, he just thought that was like the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. And he didn't know how that was going to help anything, and he thinks metal detectors are the way. That was his input, personally. I heard that.
We are at 5 minutes.
Oh, we are, okay. I do want to say this last one. It said, one student, their concern was the teachers. The student said, are our teachers okay? I feel so sad for the teachers. So, you know, they just need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle just nodded at me if I have it. Like the other gentleman, wondering whether COVID funding, grant monies, things like that that are accessible to us, whether we're looking at using those monies in ways that can help social emotional learning, everything from paying for counseling, those kinds of things, and we will look at that. Cabinet, Dr. Henry talked to kids today. Is he talking to them on Thursday? Did what took place today get recorded? So what took place today did get recorded. So some, one way or the other, your children will be able to see what happened today. Okay? Say it again. It's already been emailed out. So if your children did not want to come today, but they'd like to listen to Dr. Henry, they can click on a link today and see that. Again, why aren't we listening to the kids? Why haven't we had to sit down with them? Why aren't we I got it. I got it. What are you going to do to regain our trust? Coming from a child, a student, not a parent. You're both asking the same question. And what I'm seeing is honest, transparent communication is still something that you feel is lacking. And it goes back, I think, to the fact that there needs to be some dialogue as opposed to monologue. They're not listening to us. I think I have it. Thank you. We have about 3 or 4 left, it appears. Maybe 4. Emily Bush. Yes.
I'm going to read a letter that a small group of parents sent today to the newly formed task force of the Michigan House of Representatives. It was sent this morning. To whom it may concern, unfortunately the United States has become numb to school shootings, but we refuse to accept this as a normal way of life. We represent an informal advocacy group whose mission is to ensure Michigan lays the foundation for change in the wake of our school shooting. Our group includes parents and teachers in the Oxford School District. All teachers in our group have children at Oxford High School, one whose child was directly impacted that day. There is no better representation than a teacher, as they know the needs of our children more than anyone. Aside from the needs of our children, they also know what should be changed at a legislative level to promote growth while addressing some shortcomings of our education system. As you are aware, this is not an Oxford problem, it is a systemic problem. We were encouraged to learn there now exists a bipartisan group of Michigan representatives whose mission is to create a safe environment for productive learning, focusing not on keeping our children physically safe, but also recognizing the critical need for keeping them psychologically safe. We need change now. When researching increasing safety for our children, measures to ensure children's physical safety far outweigh efforts to protect their psychological safety. Implementing a social and emotional learning program into the DNA of our curriculum is critical. It is impossible to create a productive and efficient learning environment for our students if they are not having their social and emotional needs met. Hardening schools is not the answer. We would like you to consider social emotional learning K-12 curriculum implemented into public mainstream curriculum. Specifically, Jesse Lewis Choose Love. On January 4th, we sat down with a few administrators in our district to discuss concerns, but walked away feeling largely discouraged. They acknowledge their hands are tied, they are limited in what they can say, and provided very little transparency regarding available monies for programs and staffing. In researching, we know federal and state money exists associated with COVID. When asked, they shared we received nearly $12 million in funding, although it was difficult to determine how this has been used. This warrants formal community input. We also know there is grant money available for additional mental health resources, but they said they have not yet completed their application. Adverse effects of the turmoil associated with COVID and the pandemic have taken a toll on children's mental health and well-being. Making sure the appropriate funding is allocated to what the students, educators, and community need is imperative. This requires conversation and cannot be a unilateral decision made by administrators. One of the biggest frustrations after this incident is the lack of a voice. Aside from our sit-down with administrators, there have been 0 formal conversations, meaning actual in-person sit-downs to discuss concerns of students, parents, and educators. This is critical. Effectively engaging students to help keep schools safe begins with listening to their experiences and ideas. We must prioritize student voices in policy discussions and decision-making.
Any effort will be fruitless if there is no co-creation or buy-in from the most important stakeholders who are impacted by these decisions, the students themselves. As stated best by Nicole Hockley, mom to Dylan, who was killed at Sandy Hook, quote, "We can honor my son and the other 19 children and 6 educators who were murdered in the Sandy Hook tragedy, and the hundreds of school shooting victims since, by committing to co-creating school safety policies with our students. Without their input and ownership, any solution is destined to fail," unquote. We have also attached a very important letter from a teacher and parent in our district whose son was in attendance at Oxford High School on November 30th. Her voice, experience, and insight are invaluable. We appreciate your time beyond words and would love to sit down and discuss further. Sincerely, Ryan Cooper and Emily Bush. If I could just say one more thing. Restorative justice or restorative practices have been mentioned to our group a few times. And while this concept seems good in theory, the very word restorative denotes 2 things that make it inherently flawed. The first is, how can children work together to restore things that were never there? Healthy relationships, camaraderie, open, constructive communication? Simply put, they can't work to restore something that was never there. And secondly, restorative means an event has already occurred. Like many measures in schools today, this is reactionary. It's too late. Something potentially catastrophic or devastating has already happened.
We are.
So I want to end with this. In a world where mental health are dirty words and society struggles to help and support people with emotional and psychological special needs, we now have an entire district full of children with special needs. Thank you.
Just want to make sure that I got some of the points here that you and some other parents, and including some teachers, have been communicating with the task force in the state that is looking at how we can do things better, and you're working with them and working and talking to them because it's a systemic problem. Strongly, your concern and appeal to us as a school board and a district is to stay focused on the psychological safety, social emotional programs that go K to 12, use COVID money, use grant, use whatever you have to. But in the process, if you don't talk to certain people, they lack a voice. We've got students, parents, teachers that we have to make sure that we're listening to. And then the mother who said, honor my son by making sure that you co-create safety policies with those that the policies are going to affect. And lastly, a concern that restorative justice, I guess I won't use a descriptive word, I'll just say it ends up being reactionary because it's after the fact. Thank you. Steve, you didn't give me a subject.
My name is Steve Schenke. I used to eat in this cafeteria. I've been an Ocsba resident 35 years, graduated in 1992. I have 2 daughters that went to this school. One graduated, one's a sophomore. Wish I would have been better prepared for this because I didn't know the rules of engagement and what I could do. But wanted to just make a couple statements regarding what I see and what I feel, what's going on. After I've watched the last board meeting a little bit, I've seen some people making comments and whatnot, what they felt was wrong and right, and what they should do. I don't believe you can fix it. We don't have a problem that you can fix. You can fix the symptoms, you can do these types of things and maybe take some more precautions and pat people down and put metal detectors up. We have a morality problem. We have a problem that starts in the home. we put our kids entrusted in your care at school and expect you to do a job, you get paid to do it. We hire counselors that, in my opinion, what I've seen and what's been put out there, that pretty black and white. We have counselors that hang pieces of paper on the wall, and administration says they're really smart. They went to school, they got an education, they're above and beyond the rest.
There needs to be accountability, and I have seen in lesser discipline problems, kids that have broken rules that are big rules, come back and almost be celebrated and never, ever see discipline. If we're not going to hold our kids accountable and we're not going to accept the accountability of our mistakes ourselves, where is this country going to be in 10 years? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned a third round of COVID monies. Look at the strings attached. Feel that the board, maybe administration, isn't living up to its own vision and values. We've repeatedly lied. But also we're not involved in collaborative conversation, getting, hearing and engaging. You promised to vote, but you didn't. Our oath is to serve your needs. I think the oath was to the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan, but I'll check that. But repeatedly throughout, it's if we're not accountable, how can we have trust and integrity? So thank you. Elizabeth, student mental health.
Good evening. My daughter is a freshman. We've been in your school district for 6 years, and she did come to school today to see her friends. She's been waiting to get back to her friends. That's been the most therapeutic thing so far for her. They literally are each other's therapists, and I think probably every parent would agree that that has been an extremely vital part is their communication. The more you can get them together in the more informal circumstances that were discussed, the better. That would just be huge. Anything you can add for them to be together is great. I hear stories about how they talk each other out of depression. They talk each other out of suicide. They talk each other through their family issues. I mean, these kids are heroes. These kids, we don't give them enough credit. They are powerful. They are a force that is going to lead our country moving forward. I'm so proud of them and proud of them coming today. Oh my goodness, how huge is that they showed up today with, I was so proud of them. It was a good thing. Nothing here is perfect, obviously. I applaud all of you for the efforts that you have put out. It's been like moving mountains. I am very impressed. Jill, you are, oh, I'm not supposed to talk to you, but Jill is amazing, and she's an excellent communicator. I'm very impressed with what she has done. But I'd like to talk about my daughter. Since the 30th, she has literally helped adults through their trauma, she has helped them. So hearing from these kids is critical. I understand that you've already got everything, it's moving forward, but I feel like I'm echoing everything everybody else has said regarding hearing from them. If you can implement something where you literally are hearing their words coming to you, it would be critical, because you know when people speak, that's good for their mental health. So literally it would be addressing their mental health if you would set up some sort of an arrangement where you're hearing their words. And you might not like everything you have to hear. Get thicker skin. It'll be fine. These kids are great. and they're awesome, and they're doing amazing. I'm so proud of them. I had some things that I wanted to say regarding COVID protocols moving forward. Things are changing right now. There's vaccine clinics that are being talked about moving into schools, but I'm going to save that since you asked for us to not speak of that. It's not that it's less important than it ever has been. It's just these other things seem to be, more important right now, but there is housekeeping things that need to continue to be talked about. It's not that those are off the table now. We're just not speaking of it out of respect, but there are some things that need to be talked about, especially in regard to the superintendent search and how you guys are approaching that in regard to some of these ongoing issues. I would like to yield the rest of my time to the young lady that I saw bring her card up. I think she's a student, maybe Madeline. And any remaining time, I would like to have her use because I'm so proud of her. I saw her bring her card up.
I think I have a sheet for Madeline.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. So Elizabeth, having a freshman, and one of the main things you wanted us to know is that the kids are heroes and they've been kind of each other's therapists, and I can only echo that in what I've seen at the coffee shop at the Legacy Center as hundreds and hundreds of kids have gone through there, loving on each other, hugging each other, crying, laughing. It has been great, and the fact that we've been able to have 88% attendance today is worthy of saying we're moving. I won't talk about Jill right now. Again, for the umpteenth time, listen to the kids, please. Listen to the kids. And so thank you. And so, Madeline, are you one of those kids that we're going to listen to? As you're walking up, sweetie, I just want to thank you for being brave enough to share with us.
I'm definitely gonna cry, so sorry about that. But I am a freshman, and I did go back to school today. But I would just like to make it clear that I still do not miss the school at all. I did lose a friend, so it's been very important on me and all of my friends. And I would just like to say that I am very disappointed. That day, I took a different way to my class. I would have gone down the 200 hallway where my friend did get shot. So I went a different way. At that time, I got trampled by a bunch of people running. And I actually got stuck in the hallway for at least a few minutes. And an announcement went on saying that we were going into a lockdown. And I was disappointed in the fact that they did not say where the shooter was. So at that moment, of course I froze, and I did hear shots. Again, I did not know where those shots were coming from. I don't even remember exactly what I was thinking at that time. I was just scared. Eventually, I found a classroom that was unlocked, about to close, and I was terrified. The teacher in that classroom did not know that it was an actual lockdown. They just thought it was a drill. The teacher was personally, in my opinion, wasn't taking it very seriously. It probably took us 10 minutes to even barricade the door. I was telling the teacher that I heard shots and that this was not a drill, but again, I personally don't think that they were listening to me. We didn't even barricade the door. I don't think we even got into a corner until 10 minutes after. And then at that point, when she first found out that this was serious, she panicked. Was not really telling us what was happening. I didn't have my phone at the time. I couldn't text my parents until probably 20 minutes after. their son was actually in the classroom that I ran into, so I could contact them on my phone, or his phone. I would also like to say that the hallways are also crowded here, very crowded, and today it actually, I froze in the hallway because I saw a lot of people and it was just packed and crowded and it brought flashbacks. And, you know, I know that a bunch of people were feeling a bunch of different things. I mean, some students were happy, some were scared. I know one of my friends actually had to have someone with them today go to every single classroom because they were so not trustworthy with going back to school and everything, but they did it and they tried, and that's what's gonna help us get through this. But I also heard from a bunch of other students that they had subs that day, and the subs were not fully knowledgeable with the procedures, and they didn't know how to use the night locks, so the students actually had to do it, not the sub. The subs are supposed to know what to do in that situation. We are supposed to trust the school that they will teach the subs how to do that. Also, that the subs were freaking out more than the students were. The subs, I know it was difficult for them because they've never gone through anything like this before, but the fact that the students had to do it wasn't very safe for them either. So it was just a mess. I would also just like to say thank you for all the support too. It's helped a lot more than I guess people would think. Just the therapy dogs really helped too, and the counselors. But this needs to be a really long-term thing because I know this is going to struggle with us. For me, every single year that I'm going to be going here, I hope that I will continue to go to Oxford High School. This is where I've grown up. This is where I wanted to go in middle school and elementary school. I've looked up to these high schoolers, and I've gone to the football games, and I wanted to be in that student section. So this year, I got to experience that, and I hope I experience it for the next 3 years. And I know it'll be difficult for everyone, but I just want them to know that, like, we need to trust you guys to be able to come back to school. And you guys need to show us support. I know you guys are, like, right now, but we need more support. Everyone does. Even if someone says that they're fine or they're okay, we all have different stories, and we're not willing to share it with you at the moment, but you guys need to know that we still need support. And even if we don't say it, we need it. That's it.
Madeline, I'm proud of you, and I think someone said, beat me to it. That's Oxford strong, young lady. That's Oxford strong. But seriously, on some issues that you want to talk about, therapy dogs, counselors, and support are not going to stop. They're not a short-term thing. Hear me clearly. They're not a short-term thing. We need to make sure that we all get through this, and it's going to take, it's a journey. This is not going to happen in days, weeks, or months. It's a journey. And so the cry for more support, yes, yes, yes. I want to touch on the disappointments. The communication seemed insufficient. That there wasn't continued communication about where things might be, and that's probably part of the training that you received, that those things would happen, and besides just the notification that there was an active shooter or something happening, a lockdown, it kind of went silent, and which then creates the fear and other things that the teacher that was in the room that you were in seemed to not know that it was for real, that the communication to that person may have been insufficient. And so it took some convincing on your part and others' parts to get the ball rolling, get life locks in the door, get the thing barricaded, get in the corner. I'm grateful that you got to a friend's phone. I can't imagine not being connected to my kids or grandkids. You want to talk about the crowded hallways, something that someone else mentioned that we should probably have some discussions about. And then lastly, how trained were the substitute teachers on that day? And what are we doing about that if that were an issue? So I think I got just about everything that you said. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I represent a 6-year student here in the district, and she's a freshman, and she was there that day. And I received information from the Victim Services Department stating that my student had been considered a victim of the charge against the defendant of terrorism causing death. So we're talking about terrorism. It's the #1 charge in this situation. And we go back to these issues of trust. I'm not the only one with trust issues, because obviously administration knew about this issue. And, you know, the kids did their job, the teachers did their job and reported it multiple times. The incident with the animals in the bathroom, you know, obviously there were problems, and yet nobody knows what happened when the kid is put back in class. I listen to my child, and she tells me all the things that kids are sent home for. But somehow this child is left back in the classroom. And, you know, everything rises and falls on leadership. Mr. Donovan, you told me at the beginning, and told us all how powerful you are here. You know, you guys take all the power and all the credit for everything that's good. But this happened on your watch, and I too am shocked that nobody has resigned from their position. And specifically, and you know, we came to this district 6 years ago because we love this district, and it's been great right up until now. But now that we have been lied to, we're told things would happen, they don't happen, the opposite happens, and then, you know, here there's a shooting, and people are dead, children are dead, and you guys are kind of like, I don't know, I don't feel like you're taking it as serious as the parents are. And I would recommend, my recommendation as a solution, if you want to earn the trust, Mr. Donovan, since you hired the superintendent, or you're responsible for hiring the superintendent, and maybe Mr. Throne, you could just resign and step aside while you deal with your legal battles that are being put squarely on your shoulders, along with Mr. Wolf. I think it would be totally appropriate for both of you to resign immediately out of respect for the children that have been killed on your watch through an act of terrorism. When you put this kid back in the class, you send kids home for not wearing a mask properly. You send these girls home if you don't like their attire. There's a whole list of things you send people home for, but this kid you decide to let stay. So I don't understand that. And Mr. Donnelly, and Ms. Wood, if you want to take leadership, then make some changes. Show us that you're in charge of this school, because when you blame the mask issues on people who did not elect you into this position, you're accountable to this community. You're accountable to the people that go to this school. And you're not accountable to the others, because we can remove you. Just like we're going to do with David Coulter, and any other person that forces a mask on a child against their will. That's sick, it's unhealthy, and we'll keep talking about that until the children are masked. If you want to make that the issue that you died for, or that your career is ended over, that's going to be your business. And that leads into mental health. These children have been isolated. They've dealt with the fallout of COVID, losing loved ones for a couple years now. And then we show up and we're going to strap a mask on their face. I think it's funny that you sit here with the power to unmask the children and yet not one of you wear a mask. I do commend the teachers today who were here, and they all took a group picture, and they all took their masks off with the picture. But when I look through the school pictures, all the children are still masked. So we have the teachers are willing to unmask inside the school, which I commend them for. That should be a personal choice. But these poor kids, they're treated like villains if they unstrap their masks. So please, get the damn masks off the children and stop blaming it on other people or the attorneys. You don't answer to them. You answer to the people in this community and to the parents of the students that attend your school. This is an act of terrorism, and you are on watch, and you're pointing the finger at me. And what I see is you're coming up with all these rules and new things and security protocols for the children, and you're putting more burdens and layers on them, which is not helping their mental health, like clear backpacks. At the last meeting, I think a woman stood up here and told you it would not be appropriate for the young women to have to disclose their personal feminine products to every kid in the school and to have to deal with that. Yet you're going right along with the decision to use the clear bags. That doesn't work. But you
We
didn't
are at
listen.
5 minutes.
Did you get it?
We are at 5 minutes. 5.
We're at 5? All right. Well, I think you got the message. We don't trust you. And trust takes a long time to earn. I don't know how you can get that back quick enough to fix this problem. I think you need to make the changes in your leadership.
Thank you, Mark. You mentioned the Victim Services Department, terrorism, and ultimately the question is, do we know that that's a place on our watch? You made reference or inference that administration knew things, reported multiple times, kids not sent home, but they get sent home for other things that seem like masks or attire. Why haven't there been any resignations? That we must now be taking it seriously. Make some changes. Masks are also making kids sick, unhealthy. It's having a mental effect on our kids. They're suffering from that as well. Get the masks off our kids. Thank you. All right, that concludes the unscheduled audience participation. If you have an agenda, item 13 is some of the scheduled events that we have laying before us. Mr. Throne, anything for clarification?
None.
Board members, final board comments? Dan D'Alessandro?
Thank you, Tom, for letting me express my thoughts. Again, these are my thoughts, not those of any other board member or this district. We can all agree the acts of violence that happened on November 30th, or any act of violence aimed at taking another person's life, is unacceptable in schools. It has not stopped. It's not stopped after Columbine, Santa Fe, Parkland, and countless other school districts. Sadly, public education has changed. Today, our schools can be threatened from faraway places. With a slight stroke of a keyboard or strategically placed photo sent over social media. Schools today have to be one step ahead of every single one of them. In the weeks following November 30th, I've witnessed the most amazing acts of kindness and generosity, not just from Oxford, but from all over the world. The social media world craves, and at times even demands answers. I've witnessed the vast majority of this community grant the school community, including our central office staff, teachers, and Oxford High School front office staff. These people ran towards the violence. It was vital that we afford them the time to grieve, process, and begin their healing. In the days after, this staff has moved mountains to do one thing: love the students of this community. Your students, not our students, your students. They loved on the students like I've never seen before. Make no mistake, we want answers. And I know one day, when that time comes, we will have them. In this present crisis, social media is not the answer to the problem. Social media is the problem. It has created a medium for opinion, speculation, to be spun as fact. Here's my fact. I believe in this team, and I'm proud to call them our team. Team up. Misinformation and half-baked conspiracy theories taken as facts, then posted on social media, not only creates speculation and rumor, and are not only wrong, it is the very tool used by those who believe this is what public education has evolved to. I refuse to believe that. So many acts, so many people act as if this event will be the end of Oxford. To each and every one of you, I say this: tonight is not the end of Oxford. With your help, it will be the beginning of a better Oxford. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Jeff?
Thank you, Tom. Just wanted to, I guess, express some appreciation to all of you that came out to tell your stories tonight. Madeline, thank you. Very proud of you for standing up here and telling your story, especially. Elizabeth, thank you for giving your time to Madeline. I think that's evidence of the way we're caring for one another. So there was some discussion, some comments about the town hall. And when I was listening in on those, the questions and some of the conversation, I guess let me just say this. I wanted to say that as far as town halls go, I thought the way this was put together, and I agree. I think we've got more opportunity for more of these, more face to face, including with students from clearly that's what parents were asking for. But as far as these go, I thought it was very well put together. I thought it was very organized. Having a third-party facilitator taking care of all those mechanics for us really gave us, or you as cabinet administration, the ability to share the information that we have and to be able to answer. While we would have loved to have answered every single question that night, it did give us an opportunity to answer as many questions as we could. And they helped us with those mechanics. They help us with capturing the rest of those questions so that we can capture those and provide answers for them. So I guess just another thank you to the administration, cabinet, Tim, for putting that together. Thanks.
Thank you, Chad. Anyone else? Mary?
Thank you, President Donald. Thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing your comments. And we are listening. We are listening. We have the questions that didn't get to be asked at the town halls. We are listening. I was on the website today and I saw some great information that's already up, and I know that as we have more information, it will continue to go up publicly on the website. So I'm just suggesting that you all take a look at that, because sometimes things do get lost in email. I get things lost in my email. But there's a lot of good information on there about the safety and security, about resources. I've really been focused on our Oxford Strong logo. It's not just Oxford Strong. It says together we are. We are listening, and we do care. The administrators that have put just about every waking moment they've had, with whatever little sleep they've had, has been into keeping our kids together, bringing them back to school, just like when COVID hit and we had to shut down, and we got right to work on how are we going to bring these kids back to school. We don't care what the rest of the schools are doing. We know our kids need to be in school. So we had administrators working all summer long, giving up their time that they earned to find a way to bring these kids back, and they did. It's imperative that we do keep working together. And it's important that we hear your concerns. I'm so grateful for this community, for the Legacy Center and the space and the time, and to give the kids a place to go, to give students a place to go, and families, and opportunities for families, because we have to, the healing has to happen first. We can put any kind of rules in place, but we need to take care of each other. When we were talking about the superintendent search, about what makes 5 qualities, I think we talked about, of Oxford schools. And I talked about how people in this community just seem to be able to be taken care of.
some of the good that some social media does, you know, is connecting people with resources. And, you know, I can't believe there's ever a kid who can't play a sport because they don't have equipment. You know, that doesn't happen. And it was brought up, well, doesn't that happen? You know, can't everybody say that about their district? And I don't think so. I don't think everybody else can say that. You know, one of the parents were talking tonight about how these kids help each other. And I see that with my daughter and her friends. You know, they're for each other, and you know, that's what good teams do too, because we're not always feeling positive and intuitive and coming up with answers all at the same time. You know, there's some days that I can't even think. But I got my team. I have my team here. I have people that help me work things through. And then some days I'm the one standing up ready to take those calls. My friends, my team members who aren't really feeling very willing to do that. You know, we gotta let people be where they are. And I am just amazed again at how staff and administration just keep saying yes to what the students need. You know, you're not ready, we'll help you get ready. You know, they're working so hard to find answers and find ways to keep our kids together, keep our students in school, provide the safety that they're looking for. I just can't tell you how hard these people are working. And we're here for the students. Every single one of us are here for these students. Please keep sharing, and we'll keep sharing.
Thank you, Mary. Any other board members? Heather.
I just wanted to bring up a word that came up with every single speaker that came up and shared with us today, from our students to our parents to our staff, all of the people that shared. They all had a common word of communication. So I think we can all agree that that is an area that we need improvement on and that we can work on together. And it's frustrating to not be in a more dialogue, conversation situation. But I do hope that you feel that this at least gives you an opportunity to be heard and to be able to come. And I know it's only 5 minutes, but there has to be some limitation or it will be out of control. But it gives you an opportunity to say what you need to say so we can hear you, and so that Tom can repeat back to you, and hopefully something can come out of that, and there can be a response, whether it be from Tom or a staff member, our administration, cabinet people. I know Jill handles a lot of the safety, but I hope that you do know that we do feel that that communication is something that needs to be addressed. I know I feel that that is the top priority too. That communication can bridge everything, whether it be a relationship with your spouse or a friend or your community, or it is communication, real communication, dialogue. Two-way conversation is really like the key steps to any type of proactive, solutions-based fix.
So I just wanted to kind of comment on that, and I am so proud that we got that 88% today. You know, I have 4 kids in the district, so this has been very personal for me. I have 2 high schoolers. So that went back to school. So this has been very personal for me as well. So I'm not just a board member, I hear you as a parent. So, and I knew those kids. So I just wanted to make those couple pieces of points. That's it.
Thank you so much. Anyone else on the board? Before Mr. Throne, do you have anything?
Thank you. Yes, just a few comments. One, January is a Board Appreciation Month, and you know, especially right now, I know that a lot of people appreciate your service to our district during this time, and so I want to acknowledge that. And I think secondly, in regards to the town hall, I think a few people already said some of the stats that, yeah, there was roughly almost 4,000 participants, all that kind of stuff. We had not done anything like this before, but we felt like it was something we should at least try to get as much information and opportunity for people to ask questions. I did receive just yesterday the file from the company that put this town hall together that had a list of the questions that people could either enter online or had inputted to be asked, and maybe had not had the opportunity to ask that question live. And so starting tomorrow, we'll be putting those questions all down, copying them over, and beginning to update our website and that kind of thing. I think that for me personally, I heard tonight that maybe I'll say it this way, the perspective is that we need to make sure that we include our students in everything going forward, whether it's solutions or what they want to see or opportunities for them to talk about what had happened. And I know that I have asked that of our high school administration specifically. We had received in some of our discussions with therapists and different advisors that they really encouraged us to begin a lot of that once we get it back in person, not to specifically engage in that dialogue virtually. And so I do know that the high school in the days ahead have plans for, I don't know, I'll say doing a student town hall, but, you know, in more intimate settings with their advisory classes or that type of thing where, you know, there may only be 20, 25, 27 students, to where students can know that they're heard, that they can be listened to, and that they all will have opportunities to speak and give input. And so I wanted you to know that I heard that loud and clear, and we'll make sure that continues to happen going forward. I don't know, in regards to today's return, I can't thank enough the thousands of hours that, quite frankly, was the high school administration, the middle school administration, and my cabinet the planning, the transportation, the scheduling, if you felt that you haven't been communicated with quickly enough or as often enough, it's really not, I'll just say that the reason why is because their entire time, even over the holidays, has been put towards getting our students back. Again, that's something that we heard loud and clear no matter who we talked to. Whether it was counselors or therapists or people from other towns where this has happened, that was loud and clear to us that we needed to get them back face to face as soon as possible. And not having access to the size of the building that we needed, this building here was the next closest thing that we had, and so there was just a lot of time and work and planning put into today. And a lot of the middle school teachers supported our high school teachers. They were pulling double duty because our high school teachers, some of them had not been in this building in a long time, and so yeah, there was just a lot of support to go around, and I couldn't be more proud of how our students and parents responded and the numbers that showed up today. And so I think I'll end with that. I'm just incredibly proud of our people.
I'm not sure what order I want to go in. Let me start with you. I apologize if we haven't communicated in ways that we should. It has been talked about. It has been increasing. We've adapted some of our communication to video rather than just typed words. A lot of that has birthed as cabinet administration weren't up to here with just trying to schedule this room in this building and how to do it safely, and thousands of hours, hardly a Christmas, because they had one thing, and it's their job, okay? I get it. Ken Weaver was in the hallway holding on to kids and had to show up to work to start making all this happen. Christy Gibson Marshall, and I can't list them all, so I guess it's not fair to do this. Every single one of them selflessly felt the kids had to be number one. The families needed to be number one. Sacrifice their grieving, sacrifice the things that they probably should have done. Making sure that the faculty got the counseling that they needed, that the staff got the counseling that they needed, so that they could give the right love and support to our kids and our students. And that laser focus may have blinded us sometimes in communicating properly. I am one that has hounded them about communicating in ways that we're communicating. It's improving. I promise you it will get better. We will listen to your children, and we will find ways to meet and communicate with all of you. Because if you aren't aware of some of the answers that I know that we have answers for, then no, we're not communicating properly. And you we have to give you those answers. And so I go home tonight struggling with the fact that I've watched the process and worried about some of the conclusions that you may be drawing today, and some of them are correct. We've never done this before. We're doing the best that we can. We will adapt, we will adjust, we will communicate, we will listen. It will happen. Danielle quotes our last board meeting and says, "Where did that go?" It hasn't gone anywhere. But there is some language. You used the word, Danielle, I think it was, wordsmith it in some way, or someone did, wordsmith it in some way that we might understand. And doesn't hurt or protect this or that or the other. Trust me, if there's something that we're not telling you, that's it. It's the wordsmithing. We're not trying to hide. We're not trying to lie. We're not trying to deceive. We want there to be justice. And we don't want anything that we do or say to affect the outcome of that justice. There are some things that we've wanted to say for days and weeks. There are some things we cannot say until the prosecution finally opens the trial and begins to put it out in public, and we're all going to hear it at the same time. But I promise you, the one thing that we're going to do is find a way to wordsmith what it is that we're doing. Because we are doing something. And how we're going to deal with situations. But why aren't you telling us? You said no tolerance, you said this, you said that. You said that you were going to follow 1084B. All of that was correct until someone talked about special needs and how you can't do a blanket statement for everybody because not everybody's the same. You with me? So 100% we understood what you wanted and we said it, and then had to go, whoa, 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 because we could trap ourselves into something that can't be done. We're working on the wordsmithing. We're working on what it is, how it is we can say what it is we're doing and not tie ourselves to a bazillion different possible scenarios that we can't do it that way. What we have to do is say, if something happens, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and with those collective 8 people and stuff, then they're going to do this based upon what they've decided. We're working on the wordsmithing. Please believe me. It's the one thing that we have fought to get communicated. So we didn't make a wrong statement, we used phraseology and words that could pin us in a wrong direction. Does that make sense? I need you to know when you go home to understand. We're not backing away from our commitment, we're trying to figure out how to say it right. So that you don't have this agency coming down, or this group coming down, or what about the... It's tough for a preacher to be quiet. What's that? And in Italian. Thank you. We heard you. We will communicate better. We will try to create and make sure we create opportunities that isn't just text being written and you reading it, or us doing a video and you watching it. With you, with your children, we will try to create environments in which we can do this more in a dialogue way.